What's up, everybody? This is Karak with ACG, and I'm here with Absy and guest of the hour, John Linneman from Digital Foundry, to join us once again and talk about gaming tech and make us feel really stupid, which is awesome. That's what we want.
Yeah.
We want to
Can't
learn
wait.
more. In fact, I didn't hit play because I was so busy bitching about stuff in the background. He was informing us on some cool things. So we will continue that conversation, I'm sure, in the podcast. But first, thank you, John. This is the second or third time you've been on the podcast, and I definitely appreciate you taking the time out because Digital Foundry is booming, man. You guys are booming.
Absolutely. Always my pleasure to join in. And 2024 is going to be an interesting year since, you know, we're going to be kind of striking out in a slightly different way. We'll see how it goes. You know, you saw the whole gamer network getting sold thing. I don't know how that's going to go yet, but we'll see. There's some potentially, hopefully, good opportunities for us out there. We'll see.
There's a lot of switching of that. Did you see the Escapist guys? Of course, they left, and in the last 5 years, huge groups have left. Now, I just heard yesterday that the other group, Minimax. No, is it Minimax? No, it's Easy Allies. Easy Allies is going part time.
Yeah.
So you have, and then the industry itself, which is just sort of catastrophically having its own issues all over the place.
Not really good right now.
Yeah,
but...
and Embracer Group, the great vampire of IPs, has sucked up everything.
Oh God, don't remind me of that.
I need to go and get a grant so I can
my
go and buy
Deus
some
Ex?
IPs. Yeah, I need
Give
to
me
be
my
like,
Deus Ex.
I need to be like, dude, come on, man. I know what it's like. Let me buy the IP for Deus Ex. Just come on.
Just that, man.
They've embraced it. It's too late,
dude. They hugged the light. They remind me. You guys want to know what I'm talking about? Beastmaster, an old B movie, D&D movie, and there's these owl guys that grab humans and like suck them dry, and it's like, I swear to God, it just should be called Embracer. It's, you see it, and it's so funny because I was pretty positive. I mean, not super positive, but there were times where I was like, you know what, this isn't so bad. You know, they're trying to save some, not save, but they're getting some of these, and Darksiders Genesis was them, and I was like, I'm not unhappy with that game. There's a couple things they released where I was sort of excited. And
I like what they were trying to accomplish. They just clearly didn't go about it the right way and relied on money that wasn't yet there.
Oh, dude, that is a whole.
Do that.
We should do like a. That's why when you're a kid, what does your mom and dad tell you? With the moment you're a child, they're like, never spend money you don't have.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what they did.
It's so sad, and I'm laughing because of that reflection, but at the same time, it sucks beyond belief, because one of the things I brought up for you, you hear people leaving companies that get fired or whatever, and in the back of my brain, and even verbally, I've stated a couple times, I'm not quite sure we want to run everybody out of the business, because a lot of those people have that DNA of all of this data and all this stuff and all of these amazing ideas and the business industry savvy, and a lot of people are just leaving. They're like, yeah, this is just not, there's nothing here for me, or there's no opportunities in the way that I want, and I'm going to switch. I have a friend who did games, now he's an IT guy. He's just like, forget it.
Wow, I did the opposite.
Yeah, you did do the opposite. Yeah, that's true.
The whole tech industry has been insane in 2023, though. Like tons of layoffs, and off the back of COVID, and that
the
whole volatility of it all.
The build up there was even board game sites were built. They had like 7 people doing a tabletop let's play. They were getting 20,000 views, and I told them, I was like, guys, I love you, but you got to be prepared. That audience, they're going to go back to work, man. You got to make sure you got some money saved. And they're like, no worries. And now they're at 2,000. And the guys had to, and I was just like, come on, people. But let's talk about good stuff. Yeah. First of all, you've been with Digital Foundry how long now?
Oh God, it's been this year. In 2024, it will be 11 years.
Damn, son, really? I thought it was like 7 or 8. Okay, so no, 11 years. How did you get, how did because Digital Foundry was it already the website and then you jumped in, or did you help with it? It
was. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how much. So it actually started, Rich Ledbetter, of course, who, he's a legend to himself. Obviously he's been doing this stuff since like 1990. Right. So you're just like, he's still sharp doing it. And he actually started Digital Foundry. I can't remember the exact time, but sometime in the early 2000s. And it was actually a very different type of business focused on creating DVDs for companies. Like, sometimes you'd have like magazine pack-ins with like DVDs with a bunch of trailers on it, or like, special features, stuff like that.
Right.
That's what Digital Foundry was doing. Basically,
man, that's a huge pivot.
That's a huge thank you. That's exactly what I was thinking.
So he started that himself and was doing that for a while, and then at some point he put together this like weird capture solution to do like HD capture at a time using like medical imaging cards or something, that like high-end gear that didn't really exist in the gaming space. This is before like any random YouTube man could capture the gameplay. It just wasn't a thing, especially not like 1080p. High resolutions like that. And he was one of the first to really like bring this into the gaming space and started doing this sort of like close analysis of game graphics, if you will. And it just started out as like a website thing, and then it kind of came onto Eurogamer as a partnership, a 50-50 kind of thing. And then Tom came on, and this was when it was mostly just on Eurogamer. Tom was there. Then there was David Bearton, he's the only one that's not still with us, but he's still alive.
It was like
this actually that funny story about that one time when they were doing like an office tour, before the whole thing changed, but Rich was going around and was like, this is where Dave used to sit. He's no longer with us. And then he moved on. Wow. Everybody in the comment was like, what? Did he die? It's like, no, he's totally fine. Thankfully.
That's just Richard, man. His brain's in computers, not always in the social speaking arena.
But yeah, so it was just humming along as a site. I was a reader. I loved it. I thought it was interesting stuff. But at the time, it was really just focused on frame rate and resolution stuff. But you could see Richard was starting to do these more in-depth sort of investigations and like interviews pieces, and like more looking closely at the visual composition rather than just like what's the resolution and frame rate.
Right.
And that's kind of when I came on board in 2013, when it was starting to spice up a little bit, right around the corner from the new consoles. At the time, PS4, Xbox One. It was when I moved to Europe. So I basically left my IT work behind in the States and came over here and joined up with DF and started rolling. First video was the Puppeteer demo, by the way.
Oh, damn.
Which was
back in the day.
That was a banger. And then I think it was in 2015, that's when we started to push more for doing voiceover video. Like we had done some before that, earlier than that, but not that many. And I had experimented on my own on separate channels, and not, just trying to get my feet wet with it.
Yeah.
Because I'd never really done video stuff before up until that point. And then it was like, all right, let's do this. And I think I did like a video about like some kind of like Xbox streaming thing, which weirdly enough that would be one of my first voiceover videos on the channel, considering my feelings on that type of stuff.
Right.
But and then I did Gears of War Ultimate Edition, and it was like only a 15-minute video, but it took me like 2 weeks of work to do it. I was trying to figure out how the heck to do that kind of video. It was a huge pain in the butt, but I was happy with that, and we just kind of continued from there. And yeah.
I was joking so we were always joking about pixel peeping, and I think you guys were the ones who originally stated it, but it's like become a joke in our group now. Like, oh, we're pixel peeping this game. But I sort of envision you guys sitting around in like leather jackets with pipes with a big screen, and all of you with your magnifying glasses looking at one corner pixel going like, slightly different on the PS5 versus the Xbox. And we always joke about it. The question comes up every time. And it's a question that I get, and I'm sure it's in my list of questions. How do you continue to enjoy games when your job is to dissect games?
Oh, because we've moved beyond just like that kind of analysis, I think. But it's more because I have a deeper understanding now of that sort of stuff, as well as game design in general. And I've done some of that lately, actually. We'll have to talk about that.
Yeah, we will, for sure.
It helps me really appreciate the games that are done well or appeal to my specific sensibilities, right? When something really hits, like even if you understand some of what goes on beneath the surface, it doesn't matter. You still can be completely grabbed by it and really enjoy it.
Right.
But at the same time, that also means that games that might be popular but seem kind of standard, if you will, maybe don't really work for me anymore. Because like, I could see games that today I just bounce off of. In the past, I would have been like, dude, this is sick. This is like, this is amazing. I can't believe I can play this. And now it's kind of fallen away from that. Like, I guess I don't want to throw anybody under the bus by giving examples, but just like a standard open world style game, some of the stuff that's being made,
nothing special going on.
Right. Well, that's the thing, is from a 20-year perspective, if you go back 20 years, what they're doing seems super special, but now it's just like it's all been done. It's very rote. It's very standard. A lot of these open world games are still designed with that. Here's this map. Here's icons on the map. Go to icon on map, get story sequence. Go to other icon on map, get story sequence. Do thing. Go back to original icon. It's just that kind of flow.
Got that formula down, yeah.
And a lot of people just follow that, and that can still work if the core of what you're doing within that space is really interesting. But for me, that's just boring now. But people still love it, and I respect that. So
not only
that's kind of what's happened to me, I guess, from doing this for so long.
So when I'm always asked it, I'm always like, I also believe that luckily people are born every day, so new people are coming in, so it's their first experience. And so I come at it from a weird way of, I remember a conversation I had with friends, and somebody was like, the only way you can talk about RPGs is if you played the original Final Fantasy. And I was like, okay, screw that. That makes no sense. It makes no sense that we're going to require people to come into a conversation gated with this knowledge. That's the only way you can talk about it. But then the more people I talked to, they were like, listen, this is the first Gears. Gears 6 is the first Gears. So KARAK or Gears 5 or what have you, you need to tell me if it's good for a newcomer. So even in my reviews, I've started being like, if you're new, boom. If as a representation of a sequel, boom. And this is sort of the way you're going to have to, because we can't celebrate the explosion of gamers, but at the same time pretend everything's the same, and pretend that the conversations we are having, like Absy's in Saudi Arabia. So my joke all the time is we were called the International Podcast on purpose because I was blown away at the tech that I could talk to somebody in Saudi Arabia, somebody in London, somebody in Africa and Japan at the same time. And I was blown as I wrote fucking letters to kids in China when I grew up, like pen pals. And so the ability for us to talk about games, and I remember these guys tell me the price of a game was different. And what's happened to me is I continue to love games because not only did I learn a ton now, but a lot of times I sort of proxy through new fans. Like when a couple days ago I was talking about Avatar, and I was like, listen, yeah, you could say it's like this and like this, but just like we see a lot of games have a template, the desire that they've done to cut a couple things from the template is just as noticeable. And it's something that also I'm not a big fan of, a game that says we're different, but when you look, what they really did was just cut the very specific things off, and they pretend like it's a completely new thing. No, it's like you've just covered up the quest line or whatever, but it's still all there in the background. But when you talk to a newcomer who sees Avatar, I mean, I heard somebody be like, and I don't cry or get whatever emotional much about games, but this person was like, dude, I loved Avatar as a kid. I got to see the new movie, and then I played this game, and it looks like Avatar. Like, it looks like I'm there. And I proxy through that a lot of times. I'm like, I just sort of piggyback on it. I'm like, dude, that's, and then I get excited because I'm like, oh, that's so cool that this person gets to experience that. So I guess we have to come at it from different ways. Yeah, go ahead.
I remember back in the day, like when Avatar had just come out, and then me and my friends were like, yo, imagine when games start to look like that. You know?
The grass. Look at the grass. Every game I played when there was grass. Look at the grass. Halo, look at the grass. Hey, and then finally in Avatar, I was joking in the review going, every time I've said, look at the grass in a game with friends, I've never truly thought it looked real. But I was looking at Avatar going, there isn't even a lot of grass in Avatar because the foliage is covering a bunch of stuff. It's odd. And then I think even what's his name who interviewed them on Digital Foundry said the same thing, that the way they're doing systems, there isn't a lot of grass because they actually have true foliage over everything. And I was like, dude, we're there. That is magical, because I grew up on an Atari with one button on the joystick. And every gen we see something, go, look at that, it looks real. Killzone 2's CGI trailer during the Game Awards looks real, or whatever it was.
I have an Avatar question for you, John. Actually, that just came to my mind. Okay, so I've run like Alan Wake on, you know, with path tracing or whatever, Cyberpunk and stuff like that, and I have a Zotac 4090, and they've reached like 65, 66 degrees, but for some reason with Avatar it reaches like 71 degrees, and I have no idea why. And I don't know if it's like something they're doing in the background.
That is a weirdly specific thing, and it's hard to say. I mean, I don't know specifically how they're using the GPU in that way, but obviously they're doing something on there that's just pushing it just a little bit more to cause that. So
it's odd because it's all like the same usage, same everything. So
because I mean that kind of stuff varies from PC to PC as well, right? Like it's more possible to talk about this when you're dealing with like a console, I think.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because it's a fixed machine, right? With a specific thermal profile, but it does suggest that the game is really pushing the hardware pretty hard, as you can tell just by what's on the screen. But yeah, it's doing ray tracing in this huge, gigantic open world space that's extremely dense. So it's nuts, it's pretty impressive. But also, even the thing about performance though is sometimes something could be like, oh, this doesn't run well, it must be really heavy, and it's actually just like not taking full advantage of the hardware. The utilization isn't as good.
Because sometimes it's like 50% and it's just not running well. So it's just poorly optimized or something like that. If something isn't taking full the full GPU's usage, but it's still kind of low
RAM
frame rate.
or CPU. I mean, PCs in particular are every part of your system now.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
Are we allowed to curse on this show?
Yeah. I actually told Abzy not to because I thought you wouldn't want to, so I was like, hey, let's keep it clean, so feel free. I won't drop a bunch of F-bombs. But
no, I'm just looking in the chat, and I swear to God, I'm so tired of this shit. Like, somebody saying that I'm pushing a political narrative because of fucking Hogwarts. That's not political.
Oh my God.
It's not political. It had nothing to do with that. I never liked that series. It had a.
You never liked the series prior to
I hated that series, and it specifically I was exposed to it at a very bad time. I fucking hate that series. It has nothing to do with politics, okay? It's not politics. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, everything is politics.
The thing, especially, Darge Knight, $10 super chat. Nothing better after the first day of work in 2024 than this podcast with John. Hope you all lads have a great day. It's funny too because when I grew up, there wasn't anything as big as that, and then there was like Lord of the Rings hit. And it was funny that no matter what, if you disliked something, it was always like, oh, it must be this, it must be that. And I had a friend
people make stupid assumptions about why you say something without actually knowing the reason, and they really need to stop it, because and I'll tell you this though, Hogwarts itself, the game is actually awesome looking. Like visually, it's beautiful, and it's probably the best looking thing I've seen from that franchise, and I hate that franchise. But the game, you know what? I think it looks awesome. I think those developers did a freaking great job on that game. I'll give them credit for that. So it's like,
hey, I can do the same. Death Stranding. I mean, I've been told that I was paid to say I dislike Death Stranding. I've been told all kinds of stuff, and I'm like, no, I legitimately hate it. And it doesn't matter. It's just one of those things.
Like sometimes we hate things, right? Like I have an irrational hatred of like Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I hate that game. It's actually not even. It's not even
locked
it's
doors,
not
barred
even
doors.
It's not even the word. It's like it's actually like well made. Like you look at it technically, and you're like, this is well made. This is super. Like this clearly took a ton of talent and time and energy, and I respect that deeply. But I hate that game. I don't like it at all. And there's so many reasons to it. And it's some of it has to do with social reasons. Some of it's just the game design itself. Like when it hit, that specific style of play at that point in time was just like
your top of the ability to take in.
The straw that broke the camel's back for me. And I never fucking complained about the politics on Twitter, MD, so you can shut up. All right. I never once complained about it. You go find it. You won't find it because I never did. So shut up.
I think the thing with like the politics around Hogwarts too is that everybody like I covered it, and I'm going to be honest. Usually I'm just teasing everybody on Twitter. I don't really pay too much attention. I think Twitter's such a disaster that now I don't take it serious or whatever. And I wasn't aware of how much people were getting shit.
Yeah.
It is. And I did my review and everybody was fine. I didn't hear anything. But then I started looking and noticing some reviews weren't done. I was like, well, that's interesting. And honestly, it did not dawn on me. I actually was blaming the company for a little while, thinking it was like WB and something they had done, or, because we all have good companies, bad companies we've worked with. As a reviewer, as tech guys, there's some things that don't work well, and you're like, I don't know if I fully want to go forward with this company anymore, or I'm going to wait. And so I didn't even know. And then I came off of it, and I saw there was a lot of stuff that I guess to me bothers me a little bit, because I would see hatred towards any game. We can get off of that and talk even about if I was to say I hate Death Stranding. But it's funny that I'll have a person who says they're a game fan and they want that company destroyed. And I'm like, what? What are we talking about here? You know, they'll be like, I hope this company runs out of or goes out of business and stuff.
God,
and it's always
that's insane. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Luckily, it's other than I have no clue what happened there, but other than that, I mean, all of ours are. I mean, even people who pay for the Discord, like they come in and they're like, okay, we can talk about stuff and be pretty open, where I think for social media, they've gone the opposite and made the social media part so unfun that you don't use social media, which is the exact reason to use social media, is to talk to others and have fun. So it's gone this weird circular route. And so having a Discord has helped us out dramatically, you know, being able to jump in and be like, this is a place where, yeah, if you hate something, you can go off, but after a while, people will probably corral you back in. But it's where people can just talk, and you don't have the shit where I just tweeted, by the way, a couple days ago, something that I believed. I told people on my Discord, there's no way to have an opposite side, because I don't believe in two sides to every argument. I could say cancer's bad, and if you say, well, I'd be like, nope, shut up, it's bad.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I posted something on Twitter and to test this at 3 a.m., which is my favorite post time. And
that's the best time.
Then 4 seconds later, I had a porn bot, and I had two people saying, well, technically, and I was like, no, come on, guys.
I found this new appreciation for life once I found out I had cancer. So technically,
yeah, dude, I have that exact experience, and I'm still telling you, I'd rather not have it. James Troutner, $20 super chat. Love ACG, love Digital Foundry. Thank you, guys. Yeah, thank you very much. We appreciate you guys showing up, doing the super chats, hanging out with us. We have a bunch of questions for John. The first one, and we'll get to Absy and my questions in a second. We'll do these questions first that I grabbed. How much study you do before you, okay, this is for both of us, before you review or play a game, and you may know that you've wanted to discuss it, and what are great resources for gamers to understand game design?
Oh, wait, repeat the beginning of that again.
So he says, how much study do you take before you review or cover a game?
How much studying do you, okay, sure.
Yeah, and maybe about the engine and stuff, or even when you play the game, what do you play, what do you do, and discuss all that. And then what are great resources for gamers to understand game design?
Oh man, I feel like a great way to look at it is to go through the wealth of knowledge contained within like the GDC vault. You look at SIGGRAPH papers, all this stuff, like that is an amazing spot to learn about this stuff, because that's where a lot of these developers share like their findings and things like that. So that's one obvious way to get some specifics about certain engines. I also really recommend just installing the Unreal Engine or Unity and just like learning it, trying to, not master it necessarily, but like for me, it helped a lot to be able to like when looking at some of these technologies is to actually be able to take them and apply them within the game, within the game engine, right? Like, okay, this is how you actually apply this to this, and this is how this works, and this how these interacts, and it really helps you kind of better understand it than just reading about it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think that stuff's really important and useful. And then, just plenty of YouTube videos out there that's actually pretty good information that can be enjoyable to learn from. Just stuff like that, that's a big help. But I mean,
hey, Game Dev Tycoon, maybe,
yeah, exactly.
Mine will always be GDC. And I know people get tired of me talking about it, but you just have GDC, dude. Even because I'm like, I go out of every review going, man, I think I got everything right, and then I'll go watch your stuff, and I'll go watch the GDC 6 months later, whatever, for the game, and I'll be like, oh crap, I missed this, or sometimes I'm lucky. But one thing I get out of GDC is consistent new knowledge that is mind-blowing. And I'm going to say it again, I've said it 100 times in this podcast, but if you want to go understand what I'm talking about, watch the post-mortem on making Spider-Man 1 on the PS4. And I mean, he's breaking down slides with the one frame, what happens on the GPU slices, and it's stuff I've talked about in reviews that I'm like, only 1% of people are going to understand what I'm talking about. But I'm trying to explain something awesome, and he did a great. And I'm sorry, I've tweeted him 1,000 times. He actually stated at the starting of the event they watched Digital Foundry. By the way, I don't know if you've seen this one, but
I've seen that. That's pretty cool.
It's phenomenal. He talks about Puddlegate and the movement of the puddles, talks about all that stuff. But he breaks down Spider-Man, and it's one of those times when I've talked about I want loading screens or fake loading screens to remain sometimes in games because I love the narrative ability to tell a story when a person climbs through a crevasse, and they're moving through something. But he explains why they used them in that game and how long the cutscenes were very particular to cull out and remove all that data when they're doing a 360 down into like a moment. They were removing all that data from the PS4. And I came out of that. I must have watched it 10 times. It's actually 100% data. You're just like every bit this person is saying, because it's a presentation. It's not a podcast. It's like I want to make sure people come to GDC. And also, as I just told some of my fans, if you're planning on going to an event, my personal opinion, and it's how I started, was GDCs. I actually have gone to them.
Oh, wow. Really? That's awesome.
Yeah, that's how I started, and I got to meet the Fat Shark guys there in a little tiny one-bedroom like rental that they got to show off Vermintide, and it was an amazing moment. They were incredible people, but I got to sit down at a bunch of GDCs and hear people talk about games, and it changed my mind. When I went to PAX Prime, I liked it, but it wasn't something about GDC is a little bit more sophisticated and a little bit more like, I don't know, a little bit more factual and less involved in the PR stuff. And from this day on, it's been my favorite event I've ever gone to. They're amazing.
I totally got it's different, of course, but I felt a closer connection to developers than any other normal event when I was at TGS this year. Walking through the
I haven't gone to that. Okay.
There's so many just like developers just out there showing their game, including like legends, and you can just like walk up and talk to them. Like we talk there's what is it, Black Finger Jet being developed by a lot of the original Nazca guys that did Metal Slug series, right? So like these guys are just standing there hanging out with their game, and we just go over and ask them like, can we chat with you guys, like a little interview kind of thing? Sure thing, let's do it. We walk upstairs and just start talking with them. It's awesome. And I'm like, dude, I feel like you could never do that at like an E3 or a Gamescom or anything. Like the PR guys would be right up there like, nope. So I love that. I love that kind of vibe.
I've been Abzi, go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you.
Oh no, I was going to say I've been seeing a lot of devs that are kind of breaking away from the AAA industry and leaving the companies they used to work at and just opening new indie companies and making their own stuff, and it's really, really cool to see, especially now with how easy it is to just like self-publish and do all that.
Or maybe I don't want anybody to get mad and go when you said how easy it is, but I know what you meant. Like,
no, it's not easy. It's easier than
ChatGPT. Please program me a first-person shooter.
Please market this game for me.
Matt Hargett had also said they. I don't know which company he's talking about. It might have been Warner Brothers. He said they did Disney Infinity, which has some ingenious technical achievements for sure. And Matt is a PlayStation dev. He might still. He's still in our Discord. But if it wasn't your bag, that's okay. I'm going to tell you right now, Disney Infinity was in my bag. Skylanders and Disney Infinity, for a bearded lumberjack-looking motherfucker, I couldn't tell you games I like more. My wife and I would play Skylanders, and I remember just going like, dude, this feels like a kid playing with toys, but the toys are alive. Like, and I get the monetary. I do understand that, but I collect a couple things. I'm not a big fan of Platinum statues or whatever those big events are where you get Assassin's Creed Eivor standing there, or I got a skull from Ubisoft for Watch Dogs. I'm like, what am I going to do with that? I'm not going to put that in my house. Like, that's horrifying. But those characters in Skylanders were my jam. They were awesome.
Stuff was super well done. Super well done.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Was Skylanders Activision too? Was Skylanders Activision?
That was Activision.
Okay, we got to remove any positive because of Bobby Kotick. I'm just joking. Because I assume somebody would be like, but yeah, no,
well, he's gone now. Anyway.
He's gone now. Yeah,
he's gone
his golden parachute. But
now Blizzard is saved. Blizzard's gonna be great again.
Yeah, here's the problem. Put your foot down too hard and you'll break your ankle. And on the pivot, and when they are like everything bad was because of this, it's like, well, prepare in a year for people to bring those tweets up and be like, things aren't fixed. And because it takes a lot more. I covered that in my video. I'm like, it takes a lot more people than usually one to make those problems occur. You know, sometimes it would just be the industry.
Hold on. Disney. Oh man, I get confused on this. Skylanders was Activision. Disney Infinity was not, right?
No. Was not. Disney Infinity was Disney's small development team. And They went away, and unfortunately,
and Disney had like a pretty interesting like foray into video games for a while.
They did. I knew two of the people there, and they just one day went into work and didn't have a job. Yeah. It was a very weird thing for Disney. But now, when I see how they handled that, all the other stuff I see doesn't surprise me with TV shows and streaming. Them removing, just making... Their choices are as if they're a person picking produce instead of a company moving other companies around. And I remember the Disney guys were like, this company's gone. It's just gone. We're done. And it was weird at the time, but now when we see all these things and we see streaming services where it's like Disney has removed these 3 movies from their streaming service, dude, there's a feeling to it. I know.
It drives me nuts. I hate that kind of stuff. It's just
I do too.
It just feels like where we're going right now is like all these companies are like, well, you know, they love this. They love to be in full control of what you can and cannot access, right? Like, of course, that makes sense. They want you to want the new thing and leave the old thing behind when they say it's time to leave it behind. So
yep. And I was reading about Friends syndication being like $20 million a year for each one of those actors, and then they removed it for a little while from Netflix or whatever. And I was like, yeah, makes sense. They're probably like, whoa, this is too much. Yeah, too much cash. James did his super chat. Rorsch, $20 super chat. A small thank you for the hours of entertainment information you provided me with daily commutes to and from work. That's not just me, man. That's guests. That's Absy, Johnny. Reg will come on Friday, by the way. That's going to be awesome.
Shit.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And it's also going to be silver, as always. So we'll get the entire group. Garrett, $5 super chat. Is that enough to make John roast Harry Potter some more? Oh, God. Here we go. Pain. We can do that all day. Wandering Dutch, $10 super chat. I'm glad to see that you're back up and running, Wandering Dutch, as well. Great work as always, brother. Always great to see John more relaxed. I know social media can be unbelievably toxic, but even your retro work is great. Have a great 2024.
Thanks. It is fun to come on here and be relaxed, actually.
Yeah,
you know, we got to be a little more buttoned up when doing the DF stuff, right? Of course.
Yeah, this is pretty laid back. It's
admittedly,
like a
this is laid back.
Here.
It's times where when I invite somebody on, I'll be like, okay, listen, if you listen to some podcasts, they might get really risque because the guest is okay with risque. Sometimes they won't. And I've had some big CEO, one person, people can pretty much guess where I was like, hey, I want them to come on, and they were like, yeah, there's too many jokes of a dirty nature on that podcast, which is fine. That's life. Like I would rather enjoy all the weeks and miss out on that. The next question is, this is a good one. What is a bad game? Bad, not bland, let's say. So we're trying to find a bad game. What is a bad game that had great graphics, or as Karak has put it, surprisingly competent? What is a bad
You're just going to drop that on me like with no warning, because that's the kind of question that requires like serious thought.
Well, you don't have to put your foot down too. You can be like, here's some that pop into my mind, but
it has to be truly
Stranding.
Bad.
No, Death Stranding is not bad.
No, I love Death Stranding.
I don't care if you like it, but I know.
Come on now.
I know. Go ahead, John.
Oh man, that's
go ahead, John.
I know you're like, go ahead, John. Like, come up with it. Wow.
Okay, well, we can go.
Oh, you know, all right.
Here we go.
This is for Garrett for the $5. Hogwarts Legacy. That game,
dude.
That game looks amazing. It's awesome looking, but you know.
You hate it.
You know. No, I don't actually hate that game specifically. I just don't think it's all that well. I can't really judge it because I don't really like the source material. But there you go. But man, what else?
Ooh, Forspoken.
Yeah,
I don't think Forspoken looks that good though.
Oh yeah,
no shit, really.
Looks kind of bad. Like I think it's like a huge step down from what they did with Final Fantasy 15, right? I think it's just kind of
Boy Band 15, right? 15's Boy Band.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Fun. I like that one.
You know what? I'll give you a classic one. Here's a great one. Dragon's Lair.
What
Dragon's Lair?
Okay, that's or Space Ace. So they're the Laserdisc games that took in that took in
is
1 minute
the
inputs.
Cartoon?
Yeah, it's
the
the
cartoon.
cartoon.
It's the Dawn Bluth. It's not point and click. It's this was an arcade game, Laserdisc based, and the entire thing was you react to essentially prompts, and due to the way Laserdisc works, they can kind of quickly move between tracks. So it's like you get to a point where you have to go left or right, and you push left or right on the joystick, and you'll go one direction. But everything is a video clip, and it looks amazing for the era, especially. Nothing looked like that before, right? But it's like, oh no, here comes an attack. You have to press the right button to dodge it. But at the time, they didn't tell you the button to press. You just had a joystick and like a button. It's like, well, do I press a direction? Do I press the button? I don't know. You just press and see what happens, and usually you would die.
It was a quarter destroyer.
Sounds exhilarating.
Dude, it was.
It actually works if you put like on-screen prompts, like kind of the Shenmue QTE style thing, right? And that was actually done before. There was like, if you look at the old Power Rangers game on the Sega CD, that actually has like proper like directional prompts and stuff that makes it possible to play. But yeah, Dragon's Lair, amazing looking game, not good. I would also say something like the Holosseum from Sega, which was like those holographic games they did. They did a couple
with the cowboy.
Yeah, there's the time one, and then there's like a fighting game, right? And it's like it was super cool to see like this like holographic stage that the game takes place on. I've played a real one of these, and it's amazing to see it, but like it does not play well at all.
So I'm a Time Gal fan, Road Avenger. These are all Sega CD, the same style, Space Ace.
And those are actually more playable, I would say.
They are more playable.
They're a lot more playable.
They came along later,
Yeah, they did.
Sega
so I feel
CD,
like FMV games are a really good candidate for this question, just because
Mad Dog McCree. I loved that game though.
Oh yeah, Mad. Man. Oh.
What?
Go ahead. I was thinking about FM.
Well, that's what I was thinking about, because when I grew up, I got the Sega. First of all, I turned the Sega CD on, and Soul Feast was the shooter side to side, and they talked. And I remember being like, "Oh my god, it's no longer subtitled. Get ready." From like Space Harrier, or Rise from Your Graves, Altered Beast, where it sounded like an angry Elmer Fudd. It was like real voice, and they did this walk-in, and then I turned on, and I had Time Gal. There was a Ninja one. There was Road Avenger, which is a Mad Max one, and Cobra Command, which was this helicopter Apache ones. And to me, dude, I knew that they weren't great, but they were a cartoon that was playable, a cartoon that was controllable, and it got away from the Sewer Shark. I'm not a fan of the Sewer Shark ones because the FMV back then was so low bit rate, and you'd see the macro blocking. It was a disaster to look at. It was like glaucoma. I was just like, "Whoa, I don't want to see this."
It's bad. Yeah.
But the cartoon ones, including. Yeah, in Space Ace. I'll save you, Kimmy. I heard that 1,000 times because I died 1,000 times.
Here's a little secret for you. Time Gal, the reason it looks as good as it does is it does not use video.
Cells of animation?
What's
it using?
So basically the original arcade uses video, but for Sega CD, Mega CD, they're like, well, video playback does not look good on the system, right? So what they actually did is like it's bitmapped graphics. So they're basically swapping a bunch of frames of bitmapped graphics in real time, like, which we'd kind of seen before with little in-game animated things, but they basically are doing that instead. So it's like real like 2D graphics, like tile work, rather than like a video. And as a result, it doesn't have the grainy issues that you typically saw on Sega CD, because they found a different way to do it. And it's really it looks cool.
Well, that leads us into the question that we're going to go with, right? I'll read these super chats, and then we're going to read Absy's question that he has about secrets and tricks. Bargava 449 super chat. I can't remember what that is, but I thank you very much. Hi, ACG and Digital Foundry. How much is the trade-off between physics, NPC objects, enemy, and frame rate and style of graphics? Is UE5 failing to deliver on promises? So I think he means like when you throw a bunch, we've talked about this before, you throw a bunch of physics in, bunch of AI, suddenly you are facing CPU issues. But I mean, what's the trade-off? It's the same balance that I think we've always seen, right?
We've always had this, and it's not even like a perfectly linear thing, right? It's all about decisions made during development. You decide what you're trying to do in that game, and you're trying to fit everything within your frame time windows. And yeah, so if you're actually seeing like massive dips in a game, that means that they basically didn't reach that goal. But you know, when done properly, you should be trying to build the game with that specific frame time target in mind from the start, and basically call back on whatever you deem too expensive for what you're trying to achieve. And yeah, throwing around a ton of objects and physics, that can be heavy on one part of the pipeline versus like the visuals or other aspects of the visuals. I mean, they're not directly always comparable, but they do add up to like the overall amount of time spent rendering a frame, and all of those things need to be considered. It's really difficult work what these guys do.
Yeah, oh, dude, it is. No matter if I dislike a game, well, we can talk about that in a second. Even if I dislike a game, I'm blown away somebody created some with that many people. Even if it's 2 people, the idea I argue with my wife, and I live with her. Imagine working with a friend for like 6 months on a program. Matt Hargett, $10 super chat. What's up, Matt? For fantastic controller-only user-generated content games, what do you think is the future? Disney Infinity, Doom 2016's Snap Map, Dreams, and Little Big Planet were all amazing and are mostly shuttered. Those are all examples of excellent user content. I hadn't thought about.
Wait, can you not use the Unreal editor, the Unreal Engine for Fortnite with a controller? Or is that not a thing?
I don't think that's connected to this question.
That's nothing to do with this. Nothing to do with this.
Oh, I thought controller only user generated content.
Controller only as in playable, but it doesn't mean that you can't make it with a mouse and keyboard.
Right. I thought he meant like what? Oh, I thought he meant like users being able to generate content on games with a controller.
Oh, okay. Well then, so what you're asking, but none of those are Unreal. He said
no. What he's talking about is he's asking about the future of this, and then what's the future of controller-driven content creation?
Okay.
Like
yeah, right? Versus what they can't. Yeah, I get you.
But then giving some examples of games where that did it very well, and then they've basically been shuttered, right? And that
Spark was shuttered.
So the issue, as I see it, is like when these things are too reliant on server backends, especially when it's like console specific, then you are just at the mercy of the platform holder, and you should never assume that type of tool will remain live forever, because it won't. It's going to go away at some point. That's why I'm always really sad to see like Dreams, man. Dreams is so impressive what they accomplished in that game, and I just don't understand why that did not come to PC, let alone PS5 as well. Like it really needed to. Like this it's such a cool idea platform. A PC version of that could have flourished in a really big way, and I'm surprised it didn't happen. I see somebody mentioning Halo Forge. Halo Forge is really freaking cool, actually.
Halo Forge is amazing.
That's an example of
I played with Spark a ton, Microsoft Spark. It wasn't as full in depth, but I made some stuff and enjoyed a lot of what I saw. Like I was, it wasn't ready. It wasn't a thing. It was early access, basically, which I think
one that's really,
that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think one that's really thriving still is Super Mario Maker 2. I mean, the community for that is still crazy, right?
Yeah.
I think that's one of the only ones. Really.
Is Mario Maker 1 down yet? I feel like the Nintendo network is slowly going down. Like there's been things going on with the Wii U connection, and we're starting to see like errors on servers and issues on that side, and I have
everything behind the scenes.
I mean, they said they were going to
those servers. 2021 actually.
Okay, so that specific Mario Maker is already dead then.
Okay. Yeah.
The thing I will say though, that rules about Nintendo is that security usually isn't very good, and it means that people will crack that stuff open, and the games can live on, baby. Like imagine if the Wii had a security on par with like the Xbox One, how screwed we would have been, because
absolutely
they just turned that off for like, nope, no more Wii game. All the WiiWare games are all gone. Sorry. But the security was so easily circumvented that everybody got everything. So it's still, the games are saved. They still exist. And I think that's really important. But if their security had been good enough, maybe that wouldn't have been the case. And that's kind of the fear, right? That what happens when we get to a console that has this kind of stuff and then the security doesn't get cracked, which is feasible, and then the stuff is lost forever. Like, I don't know, like that sucks. That actually kind of happened with, I would say, like iOS games to some degree, when Apple made the switch to 64-bit and like a lot of those older 32-bit apps got left behind, and the only option is to kind of try to play them on older devices. But even then, some of them are not downloadable anymore. They don't work. You know, there's just so many hurdles in the way that makes it really difficult to like keep that stuff going. And even as mobile games, I still think it's worth, like, it's cool and worthwhile to you know, preserve that stuff. So
try to save it in some way.
But go ahead.
No, what were you gonna say?
My final thought was just for Matt, whereas like the big thing there is, since he's talking about this user content creation, a different angle is that not only are you losing all the work that the developers themselves put into building the product, but you're also losing like thousands and thousands of hours that users have poured into making stuff for that product. So when that service goes down, I feel like it's like there's even more lost than usual, right? Because like, think about all this. You remember all that original Little Big Planet stuff?
Yeah,
how freaking cool that was.
Yeah,
and
so
like,
cool, dude.
Just to turn these services like off like that, and these things are gone. I mean, it sucks.
I love the user created. I mean, because I still mess around all the time, especially if I'm trying to figure something out in Unreal or whatever, like in a game. I'll be like, I'll just jump in, do some blueprints, and sort of see what the thought process is. And I loved Spark. I loved all of these. I messed around a ton with Snap, but I will say that there's something that there's never been one that's launched where I'm like, that's a full product. I always have felt like they were early access, and that it was like the company saying, let's see if it's worth it. And I'm like, no. Again, this is the same way when I say a company's having trouble and they blame a consumer. I'm like, that has nothing to do with me. That's on you. I don't have to meet you halfway. You ask money, I pay for it. PSVR 2, they're not showing a lot of stuff, I can bitch. Like, I paid, that's the problem. But the same thing happens here, where you start to look at like all of these systems people to use to create games. I don't want an early access product, man. I don't want if it's about building stuff, show me your confidence and I'll show you mine. And I'll show you like the return on investment of having confidence in yourself. These companies, Portal is the same way. Yes, I'm saying it. I think the Portal, dude, they punted that like a baby into the bathwater. They were like, boom, and the Portal just shoots out, and you're like, what is this? What's going on right now with Sony? Like, what are they doing? I want confidence in your shit, man. I want you to show up. That's the thing. People bitch about Xbox. Weirdly enough, they're like, dude, let's do the Connect. Let's have an event where everybody's wearing raincoats, and you're like, you guys are crazy. But you gotta go. You're like
Project Milo, baby.
Project Milo. It was a lie, but it was Peter. Peter's out there like hard charger. I like the confidence, man. Yeah. I don't want to go into a game and have it say, like to come later or whatever when it's about creation, unless it's packs and stuff like that, which I'm fully fine with. But like, do it, man. Go out. I bet you if somebody did it fully and there was confidence. Because how many times have you guys seen it where something great comes and there's always the end trailing word, but, or unless, and it's that. However, yeah. And I mean, I love these systems. I want to see more of them, but it happens. In fact, games do it better. Sims 4, game where the game is the game, but then they add stuff. Even Assassin's Creed had the make your own adventure, and I made the adventure where players could kill the podcast members. And I was like, that was incredible. Go ahead, John.
The end, though, I think where we're heading right now, I think what they're doing with Fortnite and the creation stuff there, and kind of like slowly unveiling like Unreal like functionality to creators, is actually pretty smart, because that is a platform that's likely to stick around for a long time, and it kind of can serve as like this like bridge to Unreal Engine, which is like an actual tool. So you can leverage that knowledge and leverage that experience into like actual, more than just like building something within a game. I think that's cool. So
yeah, I've been saying for a while, like, I think the UEFN stuff is one of the best things that happened in the industry, because Fortnite is one of the most popular games ever, and it's available to a lot of children, people of all ages, and they're getting into game dev and level design. We're getting so much user-generated content. Like, I opened Fortnite for the first time in like 10 years. I'm not really a Fortnite player, and I just saw tons of wildly different. There's a game dev tycoon within Fortnite that someone made, so it's just really
what,
awesome.
I gotta hand it to Fortnite. Fortnite's an interesting example of how one's opinion can change dramatically. I really disliked Fortnite initially.
Same.
And a lot of it had to do with like what it meant for games as much as the game itself, and I didn't like the game either. But all the updates and everything, I really gave it a chance recently, especially with the ray tracing stuff they did last year. And then all this new content and stuff. I'm not a pro Fortnite player, not even close, but I think it's fun. I finally get it. I see why it's fun.
Same.
I do have fun playing it when I do play it. And like I feel like I've turned around on it, and that can happen with other things where, like, you asked me years ago, I would say I hated Fortnite. I think it's terrible. Now I'd say it's actually really, really good, and they've turned it into something better. I think for me, the thing that made it work more than anything was once they got rid of the building, because I think the building stuff just like the no build mode, because it doesn't work for me, and I understand the appeal there for sure, but it doesn't work for me. Once they get rid of that, though, I'm like, okay, this is actually pretty sick.
There's two positives to Fortnite. Number one, it's better at meta than Facebook will ever be. And Facebook,
it is the metaverse.
Has all the IPs in the world.
Facebook loves to run in front of a group that's already moving and say, "Where are you going? Because I need to lead you." And you're like, "That makes no fucking sense. You guys are completely lost." And the second is, Fortnite build mode is the Mr. Miyagi amazing training simulator for kids building games. Think about it this way: when you see him go wax on, wax off, then later he's like, now use that. That is exactly what I've seen people do in Unreal. They're like, I was playing the build mode in Fortnite. I know how to make a box with these walls. Boom, they make a box. And like, I know how that works. I know how this works. Oh, I know how landscape might look better or worse because I've seen, and I got to tell you, I don't know what their plan was or if that was their plan, but the number of people I know now who are building levels in like Unreal, and I'm like, where did you start? Yeah, I was doing Fortnite, and I was playing, and I was putting walls up, and I was just like, and I don't think that was connected, but it could have been a long-term thought process with what's his name, Crazy McCrazy Pants. He could have been out there going, we'll slowly build this thing, and then we'll put Unreal at the end of it, where now kids who want to make games can look at Unreal and go, dude, blueprints are ridiculous. I got to say, blueprints are one of the best inventions I've seen in my life. So
I love blueprints. I think they're awesome, but I think they can be dangerous too, because if you go too far with it, if you lean too heavily on blueprints, looking at projects that are like too blueprint heavy, it becomes like spaghetti. And I actually think it's easier to read just like the code versus like the blueprints at that point. But what blueprints really allow is, especially the slightly less tech savvy people, like the artists and such, to actually get in there and really work on the stuff in a way without requiring programmer time, which is a huge amount of time saving, right? But at the same time, then you get into this thing where there's potential for too many shader permutations now, right? You let the art guys go too crazy. They're making all this different stuff, and now your game's super bloated, and you have issues with shader compilation, and you have to figure out how to handle that. And but it's like anything else, right? There's good and bad to it. I think it's a really powerful, excellent tool, but it's one you got to use with some care, right?
It's funny you mentioned that, because I still remember the story of the Daikatana 1 million polygon arrow. Did you ever hear that story?
What, the 1 million? What?
John had.
No, please tell me.
John was making Daikatana, and everybody was trying to work, and basically somebody got a hold of an arrow model and wanted to make it for the game, but it was a person who had no clue how many polygons you should use, and they were crashing the game. They're like, what's happening? And they tracked it back to one single arrow that was like 1 million polygons back in the day. And it was awesome, because it does show that sometimes you want the driver and sometimes you want the co-driver, like in Rally, and you don't want to switch them. but they both know what they're talking about, and they're both excellent in their spot. And sometimes there's some overlap.
Exactly.
But you don't always want, you don't want that overlap at all times. But I'm really happy for Unreal, dude, because here's the crazy thing. Every time I talk to even people who are just like friends who want to put together a little baby game, there was always this thing. Oh, which editor's better, Unity or Unreal? Oh, well, sometimes people thought Unity was better for that initial like iteration. It's sort of like, here's something. I always liked Unreal, but I heard that a lot. But now with Unreal and Blueprints, let's say if the industry was in a better shape, there's the ability for you to build something basic and go, here's my idea. Like, it's not a whiteboard, because I've done a lot of whiteboard presentations. It's hard to explain 3D on a whiteboard no matter how good you are. And the idea for somebody to say, hey, guys, I have this idea for a time travel game or blah, blah, blah. Let me show you in this basic gray box, the gray box environment, and be like, watch, this wall goes away and the guy can go through it in a certain amount of time, blah, blah, blah. You can see it a little bit. And I think that's the magic that I'm looking forward to, is the ability for people to even talk to each other about their idea, because we've had it in the Discord. Somebody be like, I wish a game did this. And I'm like, I don't know exactly what you're saying. Like, I don't really get it. But the easier it gets, that person can say, here's the idea I was talking about, and here's a YouTube video of what I put together. And you're like, oh, shit, I get it. I mean, if somebody tried to sell me on Death Stranding, I'd be like, never work in games again. Your idea is terrible. Obviously, I was wrong. So, but the ability for people to see those things, I think, are awesome. Next up for Super Chats, Jimmy5404. Jimmy. Order 1886 looks amazing, great style, but bad. I don't think it's bad, man. I liked Order. I think it just was a little...
I did a video on it, retrospective, and I've replayed it again this year and last year, actually. I think the core gameplay is perfectly cromulent, adequate, as they say.
Yeah.
It plays well. It feels good to play. It's just that it's a very slight game, a little bit too slight, and I feel like you don't get it. You don't get enough of what it's promising, right? Like, it feels like it feels like you're playing like the first third of a game. And I'm not one to harp on game length. I actually don't mind short games at all. But the way it was paced and designed, and the way they like doled out the different encounters
too,
it felt like incomplete, right? It wasn't about being short, it was about being incomplete. And and you could tell they basically ran out of, they couldn't go beyond that scope for that game. And that's kind of a shame. And it was also, I think it was pretty static from what I remember, in a way that just felt, it's... Yeah, definitely.
There wasn't a lot of ability for you to make impact on the game world. They didn't have a lot of destructibles. They had some.
I kind of put this alongside games like Rise, Son of Rome.
Yeah,
which I really like.
I like Rise. Okay, thank you.
And I think it's great. I like Rise. I think it's a really cool game, and it got unfairly kind of like hit back in the day, but it's not that long, and maybe. Unlike Order, it does possibly overstay its welcome because the gameplay doesn't evolve enough, but what's there is really fun. It's gorgeous. It's a fun romp, but it just feels like you could have, like the idea wasn't as fleshed out as it could have been if they had been able to continue it, perhaps. So those types of releases, though, I think are really interesting, and I enjoy them, even if they don't hit all the buttons and it feels like they're missing something. I think it is cool to play those types of games. And I feel like we're slowly losing that from big studios or medium-sized studios, where now when you have a game that's kind of like a double A, if you will, it often is still like trying to be like a big game, a big open world, or like a fairly long big game, but the budget maybe can't support that, and it ends up feeling kind of janky and not great in other ways. And I don't know, it's a weird thing, that type of game, but I miss it.
Plus, I think the Order came out at a time where it was like the tail end of all these cover shooters, and I think a lot of people were kind of getting bored of them.
Yeah, but also like I would say the Order, if you compare it to like the Gears games, which was kind of still, even though Gears was losing steam, like what they were doing is still, I think, better overall. Like the level design and counter design, they were the best in the biz at that. And the Order wasn't quite there, even though it had some cool ideas. But some of those werewolf fights, the fiction was awesome.
Dude, the fiction is incredible. That's
that world was really cool.
I can tell you, man, I will like a game even if the gameplay is rough. That's why I have fun factor, because I'm like, listen, fun doesn't always mean this kind of fun. Sometimes it can mean like the inspiration that you get and the weird. And Dude, I just played it about 3 years ago, and I got to admit, yes, it's crunchy. It's got a weird res, I think, still. It's sort of letterbox. It's got the weird things going on. But I was running around, and the council is there, and they're all dressed like Assassin's Creed in a steampunk world.
It was like Victorian era.
It was like Victorian era, yeah, but steampunk, and then fucking werewolves and stuff. And I was like, dude, I dig this game. Like, I dig the ideas. I don't. The gameplay isn't really even there, but the fiction and the ideas.
I remember there was a
lot
of detail, right? Like you could like pick up stuff and look at it, and I was like amazed.
There was only a couple items. There was only a couple items you could do that. They were like spot check items. Like here's a goblet.
There's actually a lot of that in there.
You thought so?
Realized. I know so now after replaying it. Well, like I realized like, oh, there's a lot of this in there actually.
I felt like I am coming off of Starfield where everything is pick up.
Oh yeah, well, so it ain't no Starfield in that regard.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, it might be like, yeah. That's sort of the Godfather of picking up shit. Marco, $2 super chat for you. What is a memorable game engine and why? What's a memorable game? I mean,
Crytek, no, because it was
for you
very unoptimized.
Yeah, for us, he's saying for all of us. Yeah.
Wow. That's a weird question to think about.
Yeah, I don't know what the.
I'll give one. Fox Engine.
Fox.
Oh my god!
But damn, was it cool.
Fox Engine.
Did they use that for 5? They used it for 5.
Yeah, it was built for Metal Gear Solid 5.
Metal Gear Solid. Gotcha. Yeah.
Metal Gear Solid 5 specifically, and then I think it was used for some Pro Evolution Soccer games.
What?
But that was after the Fallout, the whole Kojima thing and everything, and it never really. But I still think like doing that kind of. It was the games looked beautiful, Metal Gear Solid 5, and of course the Ground Zeroes. It looked amazing, 60 frames per second on the new consoles, and it even worked on freaking like on a PS3 and a 360, right? And it still looked good on there. It was a sleek engine. So I do have a fun. Oh yeah, Metal Gear Solid Survive. I almost forget.
Oh yeah, that one too. Oh damn, the best one.
That was something. Man. All right. Whoa. Yeah. Boy. Yeah.
For me, it would be the Deny engine, probably.
Dunia.
Right? Dunia, thank you. You're going to know more than I am going to know. Yeah, and it sounds weird because I'm not saying it was the best, but they added in a level editor for, in the Far Cry games. They've added like all this kind of stuff, and I just sort of, they went different places. I don't know if they used it for Primal. I don't remember if they used it for the Cyberpunk one. That was a long time ago, but. I mean, I'm sure it was probably their initial. I don't know. I sort of like the idea of them adding different stuff. I remember being able to make your own levels in the level editor and being pretty impressed.
Oh, yeah.
It had some flexibility. Even though it's dead now, I think that it did what it tried to do most of the time. There's a lot of problems with it, but it was an interesting time for me.
People made some cool shit. Like I replayed the first level of GoldenEye and
exactly.
And I think Far Cry 5. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. There's some. I guess it's like Snap in a way. It's a little like Unreal, where there was some Snap ability with it, and I saw people do some pretty interesting stuff. But sad those things come and go. Zuckus, $5 super chat. If we had to guess, what do you think Bethesda has in mind for Starfield temples?
Did we is that the one where you had to like move around and hit those floating things so you can get the power?
Oh, gotcha.
There's a mod for that, by the way. You could just skip it.
Okay, I'm just going to be honest, man.
Yeah.
I didn't have an issue with that. I had my issues with Starfield and other places, but that didn't it just
those things.
Yeah, I remember them, but I didn't hold them,
disappear.
Yeah.
I don't remember being offended or annoyed or anything. I thought they were cool. Just like
they were just a little thing for me. I don't know why it didn't hit me.
I liked it because it felt like a little bit of a break from just the standard loop, and it kind of did something a little different. It left you like, whoa, okay, this is unexpected. It sprinkled a little more mystery in there, if you will. Yeah, but I can see why they would be annoying. I actually internally I always kind of viewed them as those remember Final Fantasy X, the trials that you had.
Oh yeah. Remember those
for
the summons.
Yeah. I feel like that's what that reminded me of.
Weird.
Like stuck into a little space like this, and it's like, all right, figure this stuff out. You're like,
we'll have to like transfer the orbs and stuff. The fire orb and burn the I remember that.
And we see this. I'm just gonna fully say I didn't have an issue directly when I played this game, but I do get why some people felt these moments should have been in the game proper, and that's the Valkyrie in God of War, the God of War remake. So like they're on their own sort of thing, they're in their own sort of places, and you see that in all these games. You see like these sort of spots. I don't know if companies just think we need a little bit more, maybe. They're like, we just need a little bit more, and I'm like, I don't know if we do. In fact, if a lot of those were just in the normal spots, that might even be cooler. But I see a lot of companies where you start playing the game and you can distinctly feel this moment where you're like, I'm in side content right now. I'm in like there's something going, there's
like something gamified.
Or it's just that it's not in the proper, it's just like pop up. And it's weird because the one game that doesn't do that is considered a masterclass, one of the masterclasses of all time, which is Witcher 3. Witcher 3 side content and side story to me was better than the main story. And so whenever I troughed off in Witcher 3, I was like, and I had my issues with Witcher 3. I certainly don't love it near as much as the rest of the world does. I had issues day one in particular, and that control scheme. Sorry, I'm just going to diatribe into that. But the combat's control. But regardless, I was like, it didn't feel, when I branched off, I didn't go, oh, this is like side stuff. And instead, I really enjoyed it. And then I found myself, weirdly enough, knowing that was there, so that I knew it was there. And then I went to the center because I was like, oh, I know that's there. And it's good quality stuff. I'm going to go do the center storyline and then jump. And I won't feel that almost like, well, it's time for the... or like where I'm sort of getting the shitty end of the stick if I do decide to do something to the side. Instead, I was looking forward to it. I was like, oh, there's going to be this.
Yeah, I think a lot of RPGs suffer from that issue, right? Where there's like a huge divide between like the side quests and the main story, especially if the main story has that sense of urgency that they're trying to push you forward and make it pacey and fun, but at the same time there's a lot of side content, and breaking it is Ryujin isn't always satisfying. Ryujin Industries in
Starfield, cool. They did a good job, man.
Yeah, that was really
cool. For somebody who does not like Bethesda's story, lore, writing, voice acting, almost anything. I was quite impressed with the Ryujin quest line in Starfield.
Yeah, that was really cool. It's always cool to have corpo ops in a game.
Deadlink $5 super chat. If Capcom announces Resident Evil 9 this year, what improvements to the RE engine would you guys like to see?
That engine is solid as fuck, dude.
Yeah.
Recently I found out it's RE doesn't stand for Resident Evil, and it stands for
Reach for the Moon, right?
Reach for the Moon.
Yeah.
Dude, yes, that engine rules. It's it's super well designed, and it reminds me of Capcom's old MT framework, but like a next generation of that, basically.
But a good one. Sorry, I have an issue.
MT framework was good, dude.
Didn't MT framework do Dragon's Dogma?
Yeah.
Come on, Dragon's Dogma was one of my favorite games. That was subpar resolution, subpar
textures. The problem there was like when they switched to deferred rendering for MT Framework 2, it was kind of pushing beyond what the consoles could do.
We're able to do.
And so all the MT Framework 2 games did kind of run like trash. So it actually kind of got worse. So maybe if we keep that in mind, we don't want that to happen to the RE engine.
Right. We don't want them to
So Capcom, don't overdo the tech feature. Like keep your targets. Keep what you've got going, because their games really rely on just like the absolutely sick art and like the art direction and just design, environment detail, the character models, all that stuff is so freaking good. I still think like their games have among the best character models you've ever seen in any games ever done. Like when you look at Devil May Cry 5, the recent Resident Evil games, like it's absolutely absurd how good those character models are. It's really awesome. And for the game, though, I really want to see them try something new, move beyond Ethan Winters, maybe, leave the classic Star stuff, like something new, like they did with Resident Evil 7, like do that again, but like not necessarily that horror again. It doesn't have to be that.
That's scary.
It could be first or third person as well. Like I just want to see them take a new idea and run with it, and maybe you can tie it in with some characters and themes from the past, but I would like to see a lot of new stuff in there if possible, because I think they've been revisiting, I feel like, Resident Evil a lot with the remakes, and they're amazing remakes. And then, Resident Evil Village was kind of like following up what they did with 7.
Agreed.
So I feel like it's time to try something new, and I feel like the audience is there now. Like, people love Resident Evil again, so it's like, let's go.
Dude, Code Veronica, man. You guys let me down. Dude. Oh no, it'll happen. I'll show up at their dude. If they don't do it, I swear to God, I'm gonna fly there and I'm gonna be I'm picketing your house.
That would be cool if they do RE9, but then also a remake of Code Veronica. That would be amazing. But it does kind of feel like they're not.
It's a redheaded stepchild. It is the New Vegas Batman Origins of
and it was
Resident
made
Evil.
by Next Tech when they were owned by Sega, right? So it was, it was obviously Capcom was involved in the design. Right? Yeah, but it was kind of like a joint project between Capcom and Next Tech, which was part of, I think they were owned by Sega at that point. So
my favorite Resident Evil. Well, 7 might be my favorite now. 7 was mind-blowing in VR, and just...
I actually think probably the best Resident Evil game for me now has to be the Resident Evil 2 remake, because I think it strikes this perfect balance between the action style of RE4 while keeping the sort of slower paced exploration and horror of the classic Resident Evil games, and it found a really nice mix. The RE3 remake completely misses that. And
it's also 37 minutes long, bro.
Very short. It's very small. Very small.
Yeah.
I think
go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I think 1 remake is still my favorite RE to this day.
I can see that. It's freaking amazing.
But I don't know about you, but I thought the hitboxes in RE4 were just really, really tight, really, really good, and that makes me kind of excited for Dragon's Dogma because it's super reliant on.
I played Dragon's Dogma for like an hour at TGS.
Oh shit!
And it was awesome. It's good.
Dude,
technically, still you could feel it was kind of like very early, right? And it was still missing features, like it didn't have lock on, and they're like, that's gonna be in there, but it's not in this demo. And the frame rate was really unstable still, so it was very early kind of build still. But the core action felt awesome, and I'm so happy they kept the nighttime stuff.
They have
one of the
to.
things
Biggest thing. Yeah,
that was one of the things that like few other games, I should say, really bother to do, is like they simulate the actual darkness of night, and that's awesome. Like when you're caught out there and it's like the sun sets, you're like, oh shit, it's dark.
I've talked about this so many times in the Walking the Walk, but when you come to Grand Soren and it's nighttime in that first mission, and that first zombie hand comes out of the ground, and whenever I talk to some people, they'll be like, it's a little slow, and I'm like, have you got to this particular, because it's got a weird starting. Dragon's Dogma has the ugly first location.
Gotta deliver the cargo or whatever.
Yeah, but even you're talking to your girlfriend and you're like, I'm ugly, you're ugly, why are we talking? Like, this is nasty, the place is nasty. You go to that fight and you sort of get an idea of how battle goes, and then the wagon travel is just, it's slow, which I love, and it was just walking around, and you're like, what is happening? And then time started to go down, and when it got dark, and I remember reading all the stuff before the review. They're like, listen, darkness is going to matter. And I'm like, first of all, not many companies do it. Second, it's probably just going to be a thing, like a Dead Rising kind of feel. But instead, it was horrifying. And the best part is you saw the little light of the castle, and I remember going like, motherfuckers, run with me. And it was just like, it was like a Michael Bay moment. Let's get to and then they're waiting and they're not running. You're like, no, seriously, cast in your spells. And it made the spells look better. It made at night, like a spell would go off and you'd be like, they take a while. Those are some slow ass spellcasters. Like there's some Gandalfs going around. But when it happens, it's so good, man.
Somebody mentioned that, the original doesn't have lock on, which it does not. But when I was playing it, we've become so used to, at least me, I've become so used to like lock on and like Souls-like games, right? I kind of felt like, this would be good in Dragon's Dogma. And I actually asked them about that, and they did say that it is in there. It's being worked on, but it wasn't complete in that build. So That's the message I got at the time.
So I feel like we've talked about this in Discord, Absy. I could be wrong, but I feel like we've talked about that it combat's a little too loose in Dragon's Dogma anyway. So I think lock on, turn it off, turn it on, what have you. But I definitely know. I watch my footage.
I don't think they had a dodge either, right? They didn't have like those normal what you would expect.
No, they had a roll because you roll into the water and your damn torch would go out.
Did they have
on
a
your
roll?
waist. Yeah.
They had a roll. Okay.
Yeah, because I remember the first time. And they're like, you're too fat to get through this cave or whatever, too tall. And I was like, this is the greatest game in the world. It cares. And then I saw water and I went up to my balls and the torch went out and I panicked because I'd never seen a game care that my waist was in the. I was like, what's happening? And I did a roll and I fell off into like a cave and I had no light and I had to, you're doing the inventory in pitch dark and you're like, what's happening? It's awesome, man.
Credits where credit's due, though. I will say Dying Light also did a good job with Night.
I agree.
That was obviously in the title, but they're one of the few games to actually bother. Most games just depict Night as kind of blue. Where it's like, I hate it. It's a little less bright. Right.
It's a Michael Bay film.
Need to use
reshade, right? Yeah, exactly. So like actual darkness rules. I actually have a theory though that. And games used to be darker back in the day. If you actually go look, like PS1, PS2 era, when LCDs became popular, especially early on, and the backlights were so bad, like black levels so bad, like really bad. Like it's just if you displayed a black dark area, like all you would see is like LCD backlight, and it was really ugly. And I'm pretty sure, like for that reason, like there was at least a decade of games where like darkness just went away primarily because the displays that people were largely using weren't good enough to do it anymore versus like a CRT. Like Doom 3 was made for CRTs, right? And you can tell because it does like pure blackness in spots.
Yeah, right.
It looks good on a CRT, looks good on an OLED, looks freaking horrible on especially older LCDs, like really bad. So
yeah,
I'm glad we can do darkness again, is what I'm saying.
Am I, and I just I hope they aimed for this because I do like the difference. Dying Light, I talked about it in both reviews. I definitely love the idea of day and night changing the cycle of the world, and I would love to see more of this in like your Skyrim 2 or not Skyrim 2, but Elder Scrolls. I like that kind of stuff. I even miss it in space games where you go into space and you're like, okay, I'm going to sit down on a planet and look up into the sky, and I do get that they want to show you space, but sometimes I'm like, dude, seriously, it would be nice to just have one or two pinpoints and be that dark. You look at like Dark Side of the Moon ideas, that jet black, this is solitary confinement in space. Like you are a friggin' alone. And I love that idea.
It relies so much on the user having a display that can support
that's capable
because
of it.
like, pure black looks bad on those LCDs. That's the problem.
It looks
right?
gray.
It doesn't look good.
It does.
It just looks. All you see is the backlight.
Yeah,
and I do think that genuinely does influence the designers. They don't want their games to look like crap on those types of displays, right?
I had issues, strangely enough. Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say I think even Tears of the Kingdom did handled the depths pretty well. Like they were like pitch black, and I think that was because of the Switch OLED, right?
Yeah, actually that's a good example. Yeah, that looked really good on the Switch OLED. And OLED TVs in general, I would say.
I was going to say on Dragon's Dogma, I don't know if it's this TV or what, but I'm actually having some banding issues. And I think when I went and looked online, there were people back then complaining about banding issues in the Sky in particular. But I've got a couple things that are really hard for me to clean up, even on an OLED. There's something weird going on. And I'm assuming that has to do with like how they're, what their settings are internally. But when I look at games that do color and lighting and darkness, right, it is weird to me that it's a couple space games. It's Dying Light. It is Dragon's Dogma. And then, like you said, it does seem that I can't remember, other than Dragon's Dogma, games back then that were doing it. I think Gears Locust, the horror level, I call it the horror level, Gears 1.
With the rain, if you go into the darkness.
Yeah. You know what?
The rainy one.
In my brain, I'm thinking I saw grayness there too. I'm gonna have to go back and play that level because I love the level, and I think the horror feel and the water coming down the trees during the cutscene. I was like, oh, this is not what I expected. They look like bandana wearing, bikers and this is like a horror moment, which was stunning to me. And someday Gears is going to get back to its basics.
So.
It has to, because I think a lot of people would. I actually think Microsoft chased the not political narrative, but the more, we need to hear everything about your bad guy and why they feel, why they're a bad guy. And the original Gears were like, dude, they're locusts, man.
It's the Star Wars problem, basically.
It is. Yeah, too
where
much
they want to over-explain
sometimes.
everything. And like, I get why they would want to do that, but I feel like it doesn't usually work out for the better. And having mystery, not being able to explain things is actually often better, I would say.
Yeah. If anybody doesn't believe us, check out what happened when people found out about the ending of the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Or what happened when Master Chief took off his helmet.
Oh my God! Let's not talk about Master Chief stuff. Let's not talk about Master Chief stuff.
No.
I can't go back there, Abzy. I can't go back there. First of all, I want to say, and first of all, thanks to everybody who's watching. I absolutely appreciate you guys. But I want to say a special thanks to John. I've never got to tell him this, but I've been watching you, well, since your first videos, watching you guys, and I got to tell you, man, whenever I watch your video, there's people who take stuff apart, and we talked about this earlier, and they become a little jaded, what have you. And of course, that's going to happen to everybody. You're going to have an ebb and flow. You're going to have those times that things just don't,
absolutely,
that don't, sort of reach you. But I got to say, first of all, like, I've pinged you on questions, whatever, and you've been instantly there to answer. And I want to say how much I appreciate that. Like, it's been awesome to have somebody who knows that much. Also, one day I was feeling bad about something. I can't remember what it was. And I was like, man, yeah, try to be right or whatever. And John gave the most John friggin' answer ever in the tweet. He just DM'd me back and said, "You're mostly right." And I was like, it sounds funny, but I was like, You sort of wanted to hug, but at the same time, it's like, you're mostly right. And I was like, okay, that's awesome. I know what to do. So what I started doing was I started watching John's stuff from that point on, every single video, because I don't like to watch review stuff after I've done one. First of all,
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to get colored by anything. And I've set my foot down. That's my thought. But I started watching your guys' stuff. And I got to say, while I love everybody on Digital Foundry does their own thing, does their own good job. And I watch them all. I was genuinely impressed to the point of being stunned at your Gran Turismo Forza comparison.
Oh my God.
So, dude, I watched you descend into fucking madness on Twitter. I logged into Twitter, and no lie, I see his first post, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. So I get ready to start tracking the post, and then it's more posts, and it's more posts. I'm like, I don't understand. This is like, it's more than what it's a little bit more. And then it was days later. Post. Then he's like, look at the fucking taillights on this car versus this car. And he's zooming in, and I'm like, oh my God, John's legitimately gone into like a black hole. He's going to disappear and pop out of existence. How many, I just want to say how much I appreciate somebody like you being able to not only do it, but also you understood the one thing that most people didn't. And I'm not dissing on other people. I'm saying you did, which is that you were not only impressed, you felt like it was sort of an honor to be able to discuss these two games that look this fantastic, that have like, you are comparing water droplets and their realism in like 1 pixel deep. And it's like, we are there, people. And it was cool to see your positivity, even though I know at the end I saw some tweets where you're like, you were breathless at the end of that. You're like, I think I'm done. I think I've got my I think I've written the paper or whatever. It's been this long. How many hours, first of all, did it take you total, do you think, if you're allowed to say? And then did you ever question your own sanity at 3 a.m.?
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, for sure. Hold on. Let me calculate this real quick.
Yeah, I would love to see this, because if anybody doesn't know, follow him on Twitter. Dark X, right? Dark X.
Dark 1X.
Dark 1X.
Old 90s username. Never went away.
And check out this friggin' stream of consciousness. Well, it wasn't even a stream of consciousness. It was a lot of detail, but it was all
just like me,
GT.
like as I uncovered stuff, just like kind of like just going in there and discovering. Yeah, so that video took me 15 days to make.
I'm sorry, that's so dumb.
Holy
that is
shit.
an insane amount. I'm sorry, that is crazy,
and
man.
I put in between 8 to 10 hours a day, I'd say, most days. So yeah, it's over 100 hours for sure.
Yeah,
of time spent working on that. I think I got about, it was over definitely over 10 terabytes in the end.
Holy shit.
It's a lot of
Don't
footage.
give me shit now for how many terabytes of data I have on my hard drives. Because everybody gives me crap about that.
Dude, it sucks so, man. I was like,
did you have to like comb through all that content, dude?
Well, okay, so the way my work process works on something like that is like within Premiere, I build a bunch of timelines, separate timelines for specific types of comparisons I want to make. And I literally have like, I built the whole like the way I wanted to present it. And then as I capture, like basically I do capture for an hour, and then I take all my resulting clips, bring them into Premiere, and basically set up all those comparisons on the timeline so I could really see how they work. And then that's when I was posting stuff, because that's basically when I started to see the results. And then I would go back and capture more. And it's like you're basically like jumping between building the comparisons, capturing stuff, writing the script, editing the video, figuring out the clips you need to getting the B-roll for just regular normal shots. And then, all along it's trying to build like the story of the comparison, where it's like that's really hard to get, because
that's the hardest part, I think.
That's when I was like going from like, all right, I'm going to start on this track, and I'm going to discuss these things on this track, and then I find a way. That's when I came up with the transition to, it's like, now we're going to go to nighttime, baby. And then we look at the nighttime on that track, and then find a way to bring it to the next track from there. And it was just all kind of like done organically as I captured and built those darn comparisons. And it just, it was a huge amount of granular work. And the problem is, it's like, to get the shots, what I had to do was, you have both games running, and you basically have to match the same thing on each game. So what I would do is I actually had two capture windows on my screen. I was actually capturing on two Atmos devices. Yeah, Atomos.
Yeah, the Ninjas.
I have a Ninja 5 and a Shogun 7 here. I had each console on one of those, and then I ran those video outs to two other capture cards in my PC.
That's such a Frankenstein.
So I could preview them on the PC, and I have the 4K monitor here, so I put the two capture windows side by side on my desktop, so I could give a good view. And I would basically like, all right, I'm gonna do one run or do a series of shots in the one game, and then you're basically going back to the other game to match them exactly, and try to do that over and over and over again, while capturing on these two separate SSDs, and then bringing them together into the project and going from there.
Oh man.
Dude,
was it worth it in the end? Did you enjoy your time?
Yeah, that's a good question.
In the end, I would say I largely enjoyed it. There was, it's obviously stressful trying to finish these things, and but I think I feel good in the end, because even though I did give the overall win to GT7, I still feel both games did some really good stuff. But in my critiques on Forza, I largely found that the community largely agreed with me, and like the hardcore Forza players all were very appreciative, and they felt like, yeah, like we love Forza, but like these are the things that we want to see. This is where they kind of fell down. And it's like, it's not about tearing them down. It's like, we want them to get better at this, right? Like, we love this series. We want to see this get up to this next level, and we think it can get there. And that's what they want, right? And actually, the Forza community in general was really like, they're pretty cool dudes over there. Just like seeing the discussions, like it's very level-headed, very interesting. And the GT guys as well, like they're both, I felt like the actual players that are really into those games are all very respectful. And all the console war stuff I was worried about, it's not even necessarily from players that actually seriously play either game. They just like the platform that it's on. So those opinions were ultimately less important, I think, than the people that actually play it. And I even hearing from some drivers that sent me messages like about that tree line thing I pointed out, and like the landmarks, right? They were like, yeah, like that's part of the track, right? As you rely on certain landmarks on the track while racing. Like, all right, I gotta start braking here, I gotta get ready to turn hard here. It kind of helps like gear your brain to get ready to make those moves. I've never done real racing in real life, sadly. I'd love to, but that's interesting to hear that. And I definitely picked up on that part of the track, the way they built those tracks. But and of course, some people were upset by the results, as you'd expect. And so they always, yeah, it results in the type of stuff you'd expect. But overall, I'd say I'm pretty happy with the discourse around it. And I think most people seem to have enjoyed the video, which is all really what I wanted out of it. Is like, I wanted to make something people would enjoy and find interesting. And I think it accomplished that.
Yeah, it definitely did. And seeing behind it. So first of all, that's another thing I want to thank you for, because you told me about the Atmos device about 3 years ago in a tweet. I was like, I'm having an issue capturing, and I don't like what I'm getting. And if I want to count frames for the hell of it, to sort of talk without ignoring all the other frame interpolation shit. You told me about it, and I got it, and I was really happy. But what I like is, you sort of covered the behind the scenes, which I think a lot of people like to hide that because it's a power trip, or it's it's like a, people pretend they're open, but it's behind the scenes. It's like, they don't want to talk about their plan or how they do things, because it gives somebody the one up. And that's one of the things I noticed about you, is you're just like, dude, this is what I'm doing. And I was watching The Descent, and it was like, it was just picture after picture after picture. And it was so funny because I was waiting, and I'm sure you might have seen this, I didn't, but I was waiting for one particular thing to be said, because I believe it even now after seeing your video and playing this game. I was expecting more people to bitch about Drive Club, not like somebody to be like, it doesn't matter about either one of these games, Drive Club is still the best looking racer, because Drive Club is legitimately phenomenal looking. And
yeah, it is.
But it's over the top phenomenal. Like, I don't know how to describe. There's something about it that doesn't fit.
I would say it subscribes to the same thing as Forza Horizon,
which is
Forza Horizon. Look, it has this like, it's like almost hyper real, where it's like an explosive version of reality that's designed to look super beautiful and like really in your face, and it is genuinely stunning, but it's not necessarily real. Right. And that's by design. It's meant to look eye-catching in a way that real life maybe doesn't always, where it's like, that's the challenge with these racing sims, to make them like beautiful and stand out, is that most racetracks in real life aren't actually like beautiful places.
No, they're boring as hell.
Like they're just meant for racing. Like they're not meant to look awesome. I mean, you usually get that from the fictional circuits, like that new Hakone track in that they made for Forza. That's freaking awesome, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit more touched up.
Yeah, those types of like fake tracks look the best, but that's not real. I think they're awesome in there, but the real tracks themselves, there's only so much you can do, right?
Also, Abzi and I talk about this all the time. I still do firmly believe for a long time there's been different games that illustrated the power of a system, and it used to be back in the day where you would get three. You'd get the fighter, the platform, and the racing. And now as it's continued forward, it really is racing again. I mean, I think first-person shooter in a way, or third-person, sort of tried to circumvent but Forza Horizon in particular, which was crazy in what it could do, and then Forza kept nailing it, and GT7 has always, or GT's always been
I would
good.
say this though, you look, GT7 and Forza Horizon 5 are both games released on prior generation systems, and they look awesome there as well, right?
Yeah.
I think it really shows that it's not even really about the hardware at this point, what they're doing. I think where hardware would benefit them is just like being able to do some of the more advanced stuff with higher fidelity, like GT7, for instance. They implemented that insanely good ray traced reflections.
Yeah.
They can't do that at 60 frames per second in gameplay. They could probably do it easily enough at 30, which would not be great, but they could. But obviously, in terms of pure hardware power, the PS5 is not going to be able to run that ray tracing at 60 frames per second, right? Not in the game. So that's one case where more power would help, but I think most of what looks good about it is not like actually like hardware reliant as much.
Yeah, I mean, the people, and we have a tendency too to talk about hardware when in real life, I mean, it's the teams, it's the
there's a lot of talent behind that.
It's insane. The amount of talent you find out somebody's been working on as a texture artist for 16 years, and you're like, what? And then you find what they've learned and how they've learned things and move forward, and then trained other people, and you're like, dude, that's the person you want to make sure you don't lose. Like, of all these other people, I'm not saying these other people, but it's like people talking about CEOs or whatever. I'm like, dude, it's John, Brown, who's somewhere at a PC in the corner, who's been drawing the same arrow 300 times. and has figured out a way to make it look amazing each time and slightly different. You're like, dude, that's the guy you want to make sure is there to train your other people.
Yeah, it must be really hard. Like, as we said before, just balancing art with tech and being limited in one way. You know what I mean?
That's the magic of the best.
You always have to keep the balance.
And we've talked about it with developers who like don't have the most powerful system, and sometimes the game comes out as incredible because they were crunched. They were like held down by some tech, and so they said, hey, screw it, we're gonna do something no one's done before, and we're just gonna try this. And a lot of times I think that's when we get the best games, is those moments when they're held down a bit, and it's like, oh, we can't do this, and
when
then
they try like other things. What did Red Dead do? They replaced like far
Red Dead 2
like landscapes and stuff, and made them into they put them into the skybox or something like that. Like they made them static.
Didn't Red Dead 2 do something with the images in the far off distance on the PlayStation 4? John, did you read about this? So on the PlayStation 4 for Red Dead 2, I believe they take like far off trees, and there was it wasn't GDC. I don't think Rockstar does GDCs, or at least I haven't seen a bunch. But it was an interview, and they said they did something where they took them and turned them into far off, like literal bitmaps or something. Like it wasn't within the same system that we normally see. There was something different about it.
That's fairly
in the past.
Common stuff, I think, where distant stuff is displayed a different way, and it's all about how do you transition between the distant to the new. And sometimes it's just the old LOD tricks, it's just LODs, but other times there's other more interesting things to do it, like so I'm sure I want to read up, and I want to see the specifics.
Yeah, I can send it to you, because we've talked about before. Whatever he said was slightly different, because I remember the people who were talking to him were like, oh, I've heard that exact step before. But they also made horse balls swell in the heat. So,
because it was insane how much
they did.
Yeah. Hey, let's talk about that, because Abzi wanted to ask you. He was talking about
horse balls?
Not horse balls. Go ahead. So you were talking about special things in games.
Yeah, I wondered what like is the most interesting or your favorite type of technical tricks used in games. Like, for example, I found out recently in the Division 2 that you know how there's these heavy guys that have like bullet pouches in the back, and when you shoot them enough, they like blow up and kind of shoot out bullets. What they did was like take a miniature-sized version of that heavy and place him inside that pouch. Yeah, and had him shoot out.
That is hilarious, man. That is awesome.
So I was just wondering if you guys have any like to mention, or like in Fallout where they have like the train and NPCs under the train running so that they could get the train moving,
get the animation working. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, stuff like that where a scene that's designed to be in motion is just like, it's just the scenery moving around you. That's an old style. I love those types of tricks. Now, I actually loved, since you mentioned trains, I always loved what Naughty Dog did with Uncharted 2's train sequence. Like the way they were able to, like, because you think about that train is nuts in terms of how it works, right? Because it's a whole level on a train. It's moving through where it actually progresses, right? It progresses through the level. So you start on this one area and eventually you end up in the snowy mountains, right? So it actually has to move progress, but that's timed to where you're at in the level, right? So how do you actually work that out? And they created some sort of system to almost kind of loop the scenery in a way until specific points, and then they were able to seamlessly start to bring in the next section. And it was kind of like progressing through that moving train stuff, so that it felt like the train was always moving, but like it would transition to the next scene just when it was time to get there. So again, I don't remember all the specifics, but I always thought that was a really fun trick, and it was like super convincing at the time, where it just felt like you were actually on a real moving train going through a level. Because you think about it, if somebody's really fast across the train, they need to reach that part faster than somebody that just like sits at the like, let's say you just set your controller down for 10 minutes at the start and don't do anything. Like they can't have the level progress to the end, right?
True.
They kind of have to keep looping.
That's a good point. So
and so because it's always moving, they had to do something, and they did, and it's that kind of stuff is cool.
I think that especially when you look at tricks, the ones that always stunned me was Saturn, PlayStation 1, Saturn faking transparencies with all kinds of weird stuff because they weren't able to, or at least at the time I remember reading that. And then Sega Genesis and SNES, just some of the little tricks those developers would do to get something under memory.
Dude, it's still happening. It's still happening.
Yeah, true.
Especially Mega Drive Genesis games. Like there's so many being made right now.
I know.
I don't know
Isn't it nuts?
It's nuts.
No, we do. We track them. It's very odd. It's just
the most mind-blowing thing for me. One of the most mind-blowing things last year was when I actually got to go visit Yuzo Koshiro, the well-known Streets of Rage composer.
Yeah.
At his studio, where they're working on the new game Earthian, which is a new side-scrolling shooter for that system, and just seeing those guys in their element, like back doing Mega Drive games again, is just somehow it's insane. It was such an honor to be able to bask in that presence.
I just like that. I like going back and reading some of that old stuff and finding old stuff, finding out about bugs, but to me, it's always been impressive. Even with there was some stuff that they did with Skyrim that stunned me that I guess I wasn't expecting. But especially with Sega Saturn, because the Sega Saturn was sort of the runt, right? Like they got outpaced, made some mistakes.
God,
you get a PlayStation coming out, and I love it's my favorite system. And you get like all these games. Respect. I was playing Burning Rangers and Knights, which is like near and dear to my heart. But I play some of these games and I see effects that are faked that they really couldn't do, and then you read up on how they did it, and like some of the stuff.
That's the thing. All video game graphics are faked, right? At some point or another.
For sure.
But back then you had to be really creative with your hardware usage,
with your fakery,
right? And use them in different ways, and that's why I always love the Infinite Plane system on Saturn, right? On the VDP2, where it's like it can basically do a giant tile map, kind of like Mode 7, really.
Yep. But their own version.
Build the quads polygons on top of that, and that's what allowed games like Panzer Dragoon to have these enormous stages that seem to stretch off into infinity. I don't think you could easily do Panzer Dragoon on like a PlayStation or N64, not without seriously rethinking the way you draw the ground, and that's what led to games on every one of those systems looking distinct and having like weird, unique properties. And I love that. It was awesome. It was a very cool era.
And it was also the era where I got to play 6-button or 6-face buttons, Sega Saturn controller, ABC, XYZ. They had one.
Oh yeah.
And it was my favorite thing in the world, and I lament their loss, like a fallen friend, man. I loved that. I would say also when it comes to tricks or whatever, a lot of the guys I talk to who do audio who've come on, the Borderlands composer Joshua and a couple others, Justin Bell, some of their tricks have been, to me, almost more interesting than the graphics ones. Because for the longest time, audio was the redheaded stepchild. They didn't get the the allotment of resources. And Joshua talking about what they did with their chain gun to keep the sound in time by like interchanging a MIDI with an MP3 at different times. Their guy was like, "Oh, we can. It's all out of sync and everything." And he came up with some awesome idea that Joshua was like, "Dude, I'd never thought about that." And those guys, they just don't get. They do now. I think we are seeing sound become a thing. We're certainly seeing composers. We're certainly seeing audio sort of become a thing. Headphones. We've got more people trying to get us, a DAC and stuff like that, which is
that's
good.
Actually a complaint I have. Actually, headphones. The rise of headphones. I love headphones. Don't get me wrong. I'm wearing some now, but
you mean fake?
No. In games right now, it feels like the big push is like, what if we do 3D audio and headphones?
Oh, yeah.
Whoa, that's cool. I like it.
Yeah.
But I'm a diehard home theater guy.
So am I.
Like I love having like the actual speakers, and I feel like that stuff is perhaps not getting the same attention that I felt like it deserves anymore. Like when I actually go back to some older games, even I'm surprised. Like loading up stuff on like a PS3, sometimes you're like, dang, this sounds like freaking great. So
did you ever play Black, John?
Of course, yeah. Black, I think on Xbox, it even has Dolby Digital support.
It does.
Original Xbox.
It does.
Yeah,
dude, is that insane or what? Like they were ahead of time.
It was amazing for the time. That was a chunky game, man.
Yeah, dude.
No, it still stuns me.
It's go ahead, Absy, go for it.
No, it still stuns me how they, especially in the music side of things, how they write their compositions to have them obviously be on a loop if you're doing like a boss fight or something, but keep it interesting and then have those triggers that sometimes work super seamlessly and so well that like, oh, you defeated the boss and then the end of the song started.
Dude, that was always the thing that Halo did so well. Like Marty and them is like the music was so central to that experience, and it was so beautifully timed to the action, and like it wasn't even just like fighting music starts, now it ends. It was like, here's the first part of this battle music, and then something else happens, and then it kicks things up a notch, and then it kicks things up one more time, and then it starts to wind down, and then it gets all peaceful, and then you go outside again, and the chorus comes back, and it's just like it's this beautiful like weaving through just the sound. So like Marty O'Donnell and Michael Salvatore, Michael was just fired from or laid off from Bungie, by the way, which part of that whole stupid thing. So they lost all the original sound team.
Yeah, so they're missing the sound team.
Defined the sound of Bungie games. So I don't understand.
Yeah, one of the
Halo, so good.
Yeah, like the last level of Halo 3 with the going on that Warthog, and then sometimes timing the music so well with the the jumps you do on the car.
Oh yeah,
and that stuff always stunned me, man. That was phenomenal.
Oh, go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
No, please.
I was just gonna say, when I'm reviewing, sometimes I'll be like, listen, I wouldn't listen to this soundtrack outside of the game because a lot of the hooks are needed. But it was interesting to have Austin Wintory come on, who had done a ton of different games and all kinds of stuff, and his discussion on what is the true soundtrack versus what's what's sold. Is that true? Is that always true? Blah blah blah. And it was interesting. I love artists' love towards stuff, because either it's a person who loves they're like, this is all I love. Or you get somebody like Austin who's like, nah, man, it's cool. Like, it's whatever, if you played, that's the soundtrack technically to you. Because we were talking about a couple games he had done where they had very dynamic soundtracks. And I can't remember who was on. It was probably Silver. But I was like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't hear that. And I know this soundtrack really well. And then talking to Austin, he's like, that's because it didn't play for him because the character had died and we don't have that instrument if your character has lived. And I was like, the fuck? That's a level. That's a level in and of itself. Yeah, when he told me that, he's like, "Oh, we take out that layer if the character's alive," and I was just like,
"Dude, it's like Yoshi in Super Mario World. You get the drums, and then Yoshi dies, and suddenly there's no more drums."
There's no more drums in my life, man.
Nier Automata does that really well as well.
Nier Automata's music is just. I mean, it's mind-blowing. King Bacca, $5 super chat. Happy New Year, gang. All the best. Nice to see John on the podcast sharing forbidden knowledge on gaming tech and pixel peeping. Pixel peeping's become a thing. Oh man, that's forbidden. From me. That's for just because I always I always when I'm reviewing a game, somebody post and they'll be like, I looked in the far corner and the PS5's version has better blah, blah, blah. And I'll be like, dude, nobody's playing the game like that, man. Like, come on, just play the game and enjoy yourself. Moving on from there, I do want to. I'll get to some Twitter in a second, but looking at John, like the future, you were saying some things are going on with different companies and stuff. What do you like when you look at the future for game tech? Is there one tech? It'll probably be what we think it is, but is there one tech that you're really excited for coming on chips, or could be TVs, could be audio? Like so DLSS versus let's say something with HDR or something, anything. Is there some tech you're really looking forward to?
Well, what I want is further improvements to motion clarity. Like I want strobing, black frame insertion, whatever. I want that to work with VRR. I want to be able to enjoy VRR, but I want like the super clarity you get
version of VRR.
And I want them to push up brightness while doing it's difficult, but basically, like this stuff I talk about a lot, and one of the reasons I love CRTs is like motion clarity, right? If you play a game like Sonic the Hedgehog, it scrolls really fast, and that's just an example. This applies to everything. You play that on a CRT, there's zero blur. It's just perfect. Like your eyes can perfectly focus. It's like if you're scrolling fast and there's like a little bit of text written there, the text is actually legible as it scrolls by. You do that on like most flat panels, and it's just not. It just smears. But flat panels have the secret weapon, which is like either strobing, black frame insertion, various other methods where they're sort of like blanking out the image between each new frame. TVs have this already, and it does massively improve image quality at the expense of some brightness for sure. But it basically brings back a lot of that motion clarity. The problem is right now it doesn't work with VRR because if you think about it, black frame insertion, it's kind of like you're alternating like black frame, drawn frame. Like, and if it's variable, that obviously becomes a lot more difficult. But I think it's possible technically, but it would require some pretty serious hardware work possibly to do. I don't know how it would work, but I really want to see that those two things combined. Basically.
That's pretty in depth.
That's huge.
That's pretty in depth for a changeover. What about you, Absy? Is there anything tech wise that like you're super excited
I'm looking forward to? Well, obviously with the rise of AI, I want to see it implemented more with NPCs and handling dialogue differently. Seeing RPGs kind of there's a lot of things. I mean, BG3 handled it well, but there's one thing I complain about a lot in RPGs, and it's just exhausting every dialogue option, where it becomes a game of just like asking questions, and then because normal conversations don't work like that. You kind of bounce off each other. So I want to see. I know there's like a lot of hate towards AI because replacing jobs and all that, and I get that, but I really want to see what they do with and combat AI, because combat AI, like we were talking about technical tricks used. I feel like games like Fear did combat AI really well while hiding stuff.
Yeah,
and I want to
see a good job.
I want to see improvements on combat AI again, because I think they've gotten stale a little bit.
AI is a tricky one, because when you ask somebody what they want, they say, "Oh, I want an intelligent enemy that behaves like a real person."
You don't, right?
You never want that, right? You never want that.
I've played Arma. I know what it's like to have 100% accuracy enemy shoot at you.
For sure.
Yeah, I think making AI fun is one of the biggest challenges.
Exactly.
And it would be interesting to leverage machine learning somehow to like allow the player's behavior to be analyzed. Like we've seen dynamic difficulty, but taking that to like a next level where it's able to like create something that's still fun and plays with the player and is enjoyable to interact with, but not like too intense. Where it's no longer fun. I don't know. That's a tough thing to solve.
Yeah, we've seen some of that in Phantom Pain a little bit, like depending on how you kind of infiltrate and stuff, but I want to see more.
My theory on kind of what happened with shooters and AI especially actually has to do with the rise of Call of Duty, because like Call of Duty campaigns, especially for single player side where AI matters, they tried to simulate the more military like operations where you're not getting up and close and personal with enemies most of the time. It's distant stuff. So you're mostly just engaging enemies that are like little dots in the distance. You're zooming in with your scope. You're taking them out from afar. They're just going to take cover. Mostly everybody stays in. What made something like, say, Halo and then Fear in its own way so interesting was the fact that the games themselves were very mobile. So you move, like when you're Master Chief, you're running all over the battlefield. You're using, melees. You're using all these different weapons. You're juggling. You're bouncing between. You're actually getting up in the enemy's faces and dealing with distant enemies at the same time. And that means the AI, you actually see them have to move around and deal with the player more. And Fear, which plays very different than Halo, that also had its own. You're in these very tight spaces, so enemies are right up in your face, and they're also moving around throughout the environment, navigating, doing like. Diving under tables, stuff like that. So it really felt interesting and exciting to engage with them. But, once military shooters became popular, like what do you do there to make that interesting? Those types of things don't work in a military shooter anymore because it's not realistic. Not that they go for realism, but it's like, it would be really weird if all the enemies were like behaving like Halo grunts, right? But they looked like normal human guys. So I kind of lament that. And same with multiplayer, even like the way Call of Duty multiplayer is versus like what I used to enjoy in classic Halo. It's just, but I actually see somebody mentioned here, the Sophie system in GT7. That actually is an interesting example of using machine learning for an AI driving partner. And I would agree, having tested that I didn't mention this in the video because it's kind of an extra feature thing, but the AI, when you play against Sophie, it's really freaking good. Like it's so much better than the standard racing AI you get. And I hope that they're able to leverage that in the future and build an entire next game with that level of AI in it as like the standard. I think that would be really cool. We'll see.
Yeah, going back to going back to like close quarters combat. Have you played Trepang 2? It came out this year.
Yeah, I did, and everybody kept recommending that, and I think it plays really well. But man, the level design, like I thought, was repetitive already. Like I never liked the level design of Fear all that much, and Trepang 2 is like, what if we made it like 10 times more repetitive? and also make it like nonsensical with like 0 landmarks.
So it's more about the placeholder to engage with the enemies in that game.
It honestly feels like a series of randomly generated hallways, which it's not, I don't think, but it actually could. I don't think it is, but it almost feels like that. But the action is genuinely so darn good that it kind of makes up for it. But that's the thing that kept it from becoming like a favorite of mine this year, was just like the level design really wore on me.
That's true. Yeah, it's just I was really impressed by the. Sorry to cut you off again.
No, it's fine.
I just was really impressed by the combat AI. Maybe it's not like the best, but it's pretty
good. It's pretty good.
Yeah, one of the things I hate in games, Cyberpunk did this, a lot of other games do it, is when enemies can't lose track of you. They just always know where you are, even if you take cover and kind of try to flank.
Right.
But they behaved really well in Trepang 2. I thought you could like flank them and do stuff which you couldn't in other games.
Yep.
I was just going to say that I know that the Alien Isolation double brain system has got on at least one other developers looking at doing some of their AI in that way, and I think that that's one of the most intelligent ways to handle AI I've seen in a long time, and that I'm excited to see what they do. I know some, it's not going to work for every game, but I do like the idea, especially if a character can't see you, what are their guesses of where you are? And so using an Alien Isolation style, so anybody listed in Alien Isolation sort of has a real brain that knows everything in the game, and then a other brain that lies to the alien. Otherwise the alien would just kill you the entire game. It'd be ridiculous. And there's some really good papers on this. And what they're saying is if an enemy goes through a door, this alien, this idea pops, this basically a secondary brain pops up and starts guessing where you might be and lying to the true AI, being like, hey, it might be here. And so you'll see that enemy run off in the wrong direction. And I know people will do what they're going to do, guys. They're going to watch that guy run off and say, AI's bad. That bothers me, because I'm like, no, in real war, talk to anybody. This is unfortunate, but you talk to anybody who's gone into battle. You'll see guys who say, dude, I was in battle for 5 years. I never saw the enemy. Ever. Yeah. So it's like,
that got dark fast.
So you can get a middle ground there. And I love, again, GDC, this is what nailed it, but I love those kind of things, the things we find out about Mordor and the Nemesis. Yes, WB patented it, but the Mordor system and some of the ideas around that. Sony looking at dynamic AI, which some of their ideas, I dived into that one deep, and some of their ideas gel with another couple papers that came out a couple years ago about using how they would go about dynamically altering AI. And my big question is, if you have AI connected to some NFT-like token on my profile, if I've never played a racing game, you can't adjust the racing game. It is not actually possible. So the big problem is, when does it go from generic easy to I've got enough data for KARAK? It is now dynamic. And I think the idea is sound, but the entire implementation of a profile-wide dynamic difficulty is just asking for all kinds of issues. I play Unreal different than I play Arma. I play Arma completely different than Call of Duty. They say, his button press is fast. What if it was fast that day? What if my friend was playing under my profile? I do not want my data. It's like if they come to your house and start looking on the internet. Well, guess what? The FBI thinks it's you. Like, you signed in under your name. I don't want that. I love that. I love Sony's going with it because I'm a huge fan of AI. But the more I studied that patent and the more I looked into it, the more I was like, this has so many caveats. But again, people should be aware too. These guys do patents for another reason. It's to make sure that if somebody tries to patent it later, they can say, we still want to use it, and you can't patent it because they won't aggressively go after the patent themselves. It's literally there to say, we've thought about this as well. So I don't think Sony will do it. Sony also had ads in real time.
The McDonald's.
Yeah, McDonald's.
Stand up and say McDonald's. Yeah, just get this ad or something.
I think Xbox was one of the first to do the full screen ad. So you can say Sony might have done one thing. Microsoft has shown that they'll do some stupid stuff too. So
God, I heard that original NXE for Xbox 360. Some people that worked on that, they were not happy about having to do the ad stuff on there.
The ad stuff on it. Yeah,
like that was not what they wanted to do internally.
Wasn't it UFC? UFC also had a mid replay ad that popped up during the UFC fight.
Oh God,
replay.
it might have.
Dude, that would make, as a UFC fan, my heart, I would be like, I'm fucking finding you guys. We're fighting. Like, I'd be
That's
so
sports
mad.
games. They always, and like I remember like FIFA and stuff, they had like, I don't know if they still do that, but they always have like signs of,
they have tickers,
promoting,
like almost like a stock ticker at the of
real things. I think
this is a full
I watched
ad, dude,
Blades of
in the middle
Glory
of the
because of a
replay.
game or something.
Oh, did
shit. Yeah, I found out about Blades of Glory in the Xbox 360. I forgot what game I was playing,
like
but it was in
maybe
there.
on the back or on a ticker on the wall in like an NFL game.
Something like that.
I get you.
Yeah,
I get you.
Well, hey, if you're playing a game and get bored by the ads, I have a solution for you. You guys have heard of the hit game Raid Shadow Legends.
God.
No.
Jeez.
No.
What did I do before this? I said, become a YouTube member because I won't do games like that. And
They
he
memed
does it right in
themselves
the
into
middle
popularity.
Of it. They did. They did.
Yeah,
They're like
yeah.
the shit headphones people tried to sell you. Like, hey, dude, look at my Beats headphones. And you're like, dude, those are like $3 headphones made by poor wage workers in some terrible place. Don't buy those. All of the stuff on YouTube is like that. Like, I want to go through these questions because when I asked people if they had questions, I found out they did. So I'm going to go through these. We can answer them fast for John's sake, but if you want to answer them longer, you can. Mirabilis said, I'm curious to hear John's thoughts on AI and how he thinks it might impact game development. So we sort of talked about it, but what he's talking about is something we talked about on the last podcast, AI to help devs, not just in bug testing. But where do you see, like, are there any thoughts? Don't want to spill the beans on anything, but
a couple things that I could see it be used. So obviously the big problem with the AI as it is when it comes to actually creating assets or anything that's actually creation based, there's always that risk that you're basically just pulling together things that were somebody else made that the AI scraped, right? And that's tricky. But in terms of actual tools, I mean, like, I actually think it's pretty useful to be able to pop a piece of code you're struggling with and like basically ask like Chat GPT, like what the heck is wrong with this code here? And
what's wrong with me?
Or like, why is my SQL like, script here? What's the problem here? What's going on? And it actually can deduce that. I think that potentially could save some time, like maybe save some debugging headaches.
No more Stack Overflow, right?
So that's a potential for it. I mean, maybe it can be useful for generating just like rough conceptual ideas on something that you might want to see and mess with. I don't know, like basically like anything that can assist them in terms of like figuring out the next step of their work without actually like bleeding directly into the shipping product. And by that I mean like assets scraped from somebody else. Right. I think is really cool and useful. I'd also, AI is a it's a tricky topic. So I feel like I need to think more on this one to give the best answers. But that's kind of my rough take off the top of my head.
What about you, Absy? Like anything that AI that you'd like to see helping direct game development? Like, is there any
other than what we've seen already in the tech side of it, where it's I mean, okay, wait, actually I have a question off of that. So I love that DLSS is a thing. Like I think it's one of the best things that has happened. I really hope the Switch 2 utilizes that. But do you see it? I mean, I hear a lot of it being people talking about it negatively, in the sense that optimization, right? Like devs don't need to worry too much about optimizing their games and can use DLSS as a crutch. Do you see that being like a big problem, John, or is it just
not necessarily? Not with DLSS specifically. I think they still, as with anything, you got to understand like the limits of whatever technology you're using, and that you can use and abuse those features obviously and produce something that doesn't look great. Hopefully they would not do that, but it does happen sometimes. But I think DLSS itself is generally good enough that unless you're like super crazy with your internal resolution rendering, that the results it produces are usually pretty darn good. Versus say FSR2, which FSR2 looks good when you feed it reasonably high res imagery, but when you're dealing with like these like 720p or lower games that we sometimes see these days, it just doesn't work. Like DLSS handles that a lot better. Even though it's still not optimal, but FSR2 just falls apart. And I don't blame FSR2 for that. I blame the people that have opted to sort of, they're pushing it beyond what it's intended to do.
Right.
And it ends up looking bad as a result. So you can't use it as a crutch, basically.
Yeah, that's because I keep seeing that complaint, you know what I mean? Like I see it everywhere. But other than that, for devs, I feel like a big thing would be documentation, because devs don't particularly like doing a lot of documentation, but you still have to document a lot of the process, right?
You
But
should.
I feel like I feel like with GPT that would help a lot, just to not have to write a whole
So the chat stuff is interesting too. I actually been using it in for language purposes and such. Like if I don't understand a specific turn of phrase in a different language that I'm trying to understand,
right.
pop it into Chat GPT, and it's like, why, like how is this used? Can you kind of explain it? It actually does a pretty good job of breaking it down, because it really catches like some of the more slang like words you see,
or like contextual, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I found that to be helpful.
For me, I would like to see AI do a couple things. First is help with onboarding on games that exist for a while, like Destiny 2, which has no fucking onboarding at all. Or a game I've played and I'm level 60, but I come back after a year. I'd like it to go, oh, dude, this guy hasn't been back for a year. Let's
we talked about that.
Let's build him a baby level with some bad guys so he can bounce around maybe. Because I jump into Assassin's Creed at level 60 and I'm like, the fuck is happening?
I won't have to replay the game all over again like I always do if I leave a game.
They could always take the old Seaman route from the Dreamcast days.
From the Dreamcast.
Just have
Seaman.
When you come back to it like a year later, and it's just Leonard Nimoy telling you, "I'm sorry to inform you, but your Seaman
has died." Dude, that was one of the greatest, craziest moments in gaming, was to get that. But
that was an ugly ass fish, man.
Dude, it was haunting. It looks like the oarfish, the Japanese oarfish. But I would love to see it fix AI. I would like to see those kind of things. But the big thing is voice recognition. I would love to see the consoles use voice attack kind of stuff for accessibility. So once that gets really good, accessibility to me is huge. I use voice attack daily for editing, for everything. Unless I'm reviewing, I make sure it's off because I don't think that's fair. But for game playing, doing stuff in Discord, I use voice attack for fucking... I remember I was talking to Absy one day and I was like, PC, record that. And he was like, what? You've got your like voice attack working on, it's like you can get it ingrained with stuff, but accessibility is huge. Translation in MMOs, the ability for somebody to be speaking in German and somebody else to be speaking in English and talk in an MMO without any... Like, for me to say, hey, man, I'm going to go over here, and it translates, and it's like, hey, man, I'm going to go over here. To them, that is, to me, the magic sauce. Like,
if it can do it in a way that's much more intelligible versus, like, the traditional translation methods, which are pretty bad, let's face it.
Google Translate,
Google, even Azure, I've messed around with some of theirs, and I've looked at the, like, the output and been like, that'll get you killed. That'll get you shivved somewhere if you say it like that. But... those ideas are awesome. I think it's going to be great. I don't want it to steal anybody's jobs, but I do think that the big thing is people need to prepare, because a huge swath of change is happening and the world won't stop it. It's impossible to stop it. It's even if we stopped it, a different nation would let it go, and they're going to try to make money from it. So your best bet, like I do, I'm using ChatGPT daily. I'm not using it for work stuff. I'm using it for understanding ChatGPT or GPT daily, so I can understand what does this do, so I can figure out. Not for editing, but like guest questions. Like once it gets good enough, it's like, hey, help me study on these guests, because I like to know what a guest has done or what they might be interested in talking about. Those kind of things are great. It's not going to replace a researcher for me. The big worry for gaming is a huge real worry, which is that, you'll be able to write yourself 100 short story quests or whatever, and you don't need to hire that writer. But you got to be prepared. It's a big deal. It's coming. Like it's coming down it's here. I mean, AI is here. Next up, we have a super chat. Souls Sleeper, $12. Happy New Year's. What is your prime example of an atrocious game that is insanely technically impressive? We actually just...
Didn't we... Yeah, we
prior to you showing up, Souls, so I'm going to give you a free question of a different kind. But he also says John is rocking the HD 555 Sennheisers.
Still,
you like those?
I've been using them since like 2007.
Damn.
I used to love me Sens.
I kind of I thought about changing. I do have other headphones as well, but I just kind of keep these going because I kind of want to see how long they last because I use them so often.
Yeah.
And I'm really impressed with the build quality, just to the fact that they still look relatively new and clean. And,
they do look new. They do look new and clean.
I'm genuinely surprised by how well these things have held up. And they sound pretty good, and they're good for this kind of stuff. So I love them.
Yeah, I got the HD 6XX, I think mass drop Sennheiser combo, and they've lasted me the longest out of any headphones I've had.
It's crazy how quick you can kill headphones too. Like
yeah, dude, I used to go through one a year. All those shitty gaming headsets, man.
Oh dude, man. Like there's I've had friends that get those like the PlayStation branded ones for their consoles, and those things, like all I ever see is like the plastic snapping at the hinges, things breaking apart. Like it just doesn't. They don't last.
No,
these things though, they just go.
Next question up. This is from Twitch or Twitter. First of all, people are saying awesome guest. Thanks for the guest. Cool guest. But the next up is Drew says Super Mario Wonder, D-pad or D-pad or analog stick?
D-pad.
I do analog stick.
That's all right.
Is it odd?
I still deeply respect you.
I do not. Is it odd that the big three console manufacturers can't give us a proper D-pad out of the box any longer?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't get many really good D-pads, man.
No.
We do not. Yeah.
No, and their Hall controller or their stick stop, stick drift. Like I hate the controllers from I think that they ripped us off, but that's just me. I think in every
modern
way,
analog sticks, the ones that they're putting in these machines,
or the batteries in the PlayStation 5. That is a suggestion.
Even the super expensive like DualSense Edge or whatever. My friend told me he's gotten so many people buying those like stick replacements for them because they get drift, and I'm like, damn, those are like $250.
Abzy, the biggest lie humanity has been told in years is that the fucking Elite controller is elite. It is the genuine. I just don't understand. These guys could garner such positive like fanfare if they didn't make those kind of things. You know, it stuns me that they even get out there. Next up, Bud asks a question for John in particular, because I know what he's talking about, but I don't know the story. When was it first publicly known that PS5 had mesh shaders? Is that true?
It has. It's doesn't quite have the same mesh shading capabilities as the Xbox, but it can do something similar. It's like a primitive shader of some sort that it can do. So it still has similar capabilities, but it's less flexible. And I don't remember when that was known.
Okay, that's a good dude. I just got to shout out.
That's a good one.
Dude. That's insane, Bud. You rock. He's been a fan for a while, man. Thank you. That was an in-depth question. Jack says, a question: I personally would love it if Digital Foundry would be open to covering HDR implementation and cover recommended settings in their analysis of games going forward. The HD presentation per game, of course, can be mixed. Appreciate everything you do.
That's a tricky one, I guess, because I feel like it can vary a lot per screen.
It's huge.
Also, like, it's difficult with what I have for video production itself. I'd like to show HDR, but we choose not to usually do it, mainly because I think most people are still not watching in HDR. And if you're watching HDR content and non-HDR, you end up with YouTube's tone mapping, which I don't think looks that great. It kind of messes with the colors a bit in a weird way I don't love, which is expected. It's not a trivial process. So tricky. But I mostly just I feel like I will say this. Sometimes I know when it's better to I think there are other people on YouTube that would do a better job than I do with spelling out HDR that really specialize in this. And I would suggest looking there necessarily. Like, I'm happy to talk about HDR, but again, it's quite variable, requires more knowledge of different sets. Like, I only have experience with the displays I have on hand versus like some of those guys that are doing this stuff, like they have access to many more displays and more experience with TV, long-term calibration of all these different types of displays. So yeah, that's slightly outside of what I typically do, though it would be nice to add it at some point if we had an ability to do so.
I think I would love companies too to just, I don't give a shit what Papyrus White means to you. It means nothing to the normal gamer. So you get a Ubisoft game and they're like, Papyrus White, and you're like, who the fuck? Nobody knows what the hell you're talking about. Just change it up so that they understand brightness and contrast. You know, put it in there, even though it's not the proper terms from a tech person like myself who like sells them, but I could still understand it. And a newcomer sees like Papyrus White, or they see those adjustments that don't make real-time adjustments sometimes. They're like, turn this up, and you turn it up and nothing happens, and then they back out, then it happens. Now they're screwed up, so they go back in to change it again. And
especially with people no frame of reference, like how would they know what looks good, or if it's supposed to look good, or if the game was designed well around it, or if it wasn't, or if it was just their settings, or if it was just their TV settings or their console settings, you know?
Or
where do you
I love that you were talking about Windows a while ago, and it was like Windows HDR. Remember when that first started? You were like, "What is this abomination of a system?
Why is everything blue?"
Bro, I was playing a game one time and it just it's just like, oh, at some point it sent an HDR set, and so everything freezes, and I'm like, what's happening? And then I saw HDR pop, and I'm like, okay, why did it switch like that? It felt like I was being hacked. What were you gonna say, John?
No, nothing. Go ahead. I just agreeing with you that is a very jarring experience.
It is a very jarring experience. It reminds me of HDMI handshake halfway through a meeting at work, and I'd be like, nah. And your boss
HDMI
looks
handshake,
at you.
Man. Oh, I hate HDMI handshake.
So do I. Dude, that's all I dealt with. And my boss, I'd get that phone call and I would look and I would see his initials and I'd be like, I'd look at the schedule and I'd go, are you kidding me? There's 200 people in that meeting. What the? And he'd be like, yeah, it's flickering. Why doesn't this work? It's just a wire. And I'm like, it's not just a wire, Dave. I'd be like, you don't understand what's happening right now. You have to run up there and fix it. It still occurs. I mean, I've had units where, you know, you get that shitty wire that's just not as well made sometimes too.
Sometimes not even that. Sometimes it's just like you'll have like a device that just for whatever reason intermittently has an issue with handshaking, and it just won't do it, and you just have to turn it off, back on, and it's fine. And you're like, why? Like, there's no obvious reason why. It's just something just missed when it was turning on, and it drives me nuts. I hate that stuff.
It's so funny too, because man, I remember getting that 360 and I was using the red, blue, yellow, whatever, and plugging it in, and then they had the HDMI cable. Yeah, and I was telling Absy this. I forgot to switch it from 720p to 1080 on the back of the 360. Interlaced. That little 1080 And I was playing the game going, this looks amazing. And then I flicked that switch and was like,
oh man, I had it hooked up to, what was it, HD TV with like the extra 2 colors. And for the longest time, still playing on 360p. And I was like, wait, I don't really.
Well, was it 360p? Was it 3?
Okay, no. So let's rewind here. That's a 360p wasn't a thing, but it was so the original 360, no, 480p. 480. If it was progressive, but the 360 shipped with a component cable that also had one lead that was composite, right? The single yellow cable, and that was designed for standard definition, right?
Yeah,
it had a little switch on there for HD or SD.
Yeah, that switch. Yep.
And and if you were using composite, you wanted SD because you would only do 480i max, right? And that's what you needed for those TVs. If you had HD, you would use the component leads, and then you would switch it to HD mode, and that's when you would get access to like 720p, 1080i, various others. So, and then 360 didn't have HDMI initially, if you remember.
Yeah,
correct. That was added later, right?
It was in a different platform,
Elite, I think, right? Elite or Arcade?
The Elite. I think the Elite was the first one to get it.
Yeah,
then they rolled it out into all the 360. I think with like the Jasper revision.
Jasper, the JTAG. Jasper, the hackable one. Is Jasper the super hackable one?
Lot. I think that's one of the hackable ones. Yeah. But actually, even modern, the revisions are still pretty hackable, right? But the VGA lead that was there was awesome before 360 at HDMI because it could do all sorts of resolutions, like just crazy resolutions, just like a PC basically. And a lot of games adapted to it, so you'd actually get like proper 4:3 or even like narrower than that. Like if you did 1280 by 1024, you get that slightly narrower than 4:3 aspect ratio. 5:4 games would often work that way. It was really interesting.
And I believe that came with it, right? Because I believe I used
not the VGA. Component
VGA.
did,
Okay.
but not VGA. Component, it was the component / composite cable that shipped with 360 initially. VGA was a separate cable.
Gotcha. Because
And
I know
actually
at some
still have
point
that
I
in use
bought it.
today.
Yeah, I know at some point I bought it, and I was pretty impressed by it because I remember the resolution coming up inside blades. And the best OS, one of the best OS to me.
You see the lines just getting sharper, and you're
dude,
like,
and
whoa,
it worked.
what just happened?
The blades worked. It's like then Microsoft is like,
blades were good.
Here's our OS, and you're like, dude, what are you doing? Like,
when they changed it to the Me.
Well,
yeah,
I mean,
avatars.
it's pretty clear that the main thing was that the blades interface wasn't designed to handle a big storefront, and they wanted to sell more digital games, right?
Right.
And the blades are like I think it could have been redesigned to handle it, but by default, there's just no way it would work. And they wanted ads in there, and ads didn't really work well in the blades.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
They did. That is true, man. I hadn't thought about that.
They had like a little box with ads
in the lower right. Didn't they have a little box?
Something like that. Yeah, it was like a little square where
they wanted to do the full box. Microsoft is like, bro,
they went through so many OS revisions on 360. I mean, the NXE was the first one there, and then it just continued. And like by now, it ends up 360 just looks like Xbox One did.
Yeah.
Right? Where they kind of ended it there. And PS3 has the same problem where the final iterations of the OS end up being like way slower than they were when the console was new. So you're like, can we just like have the old style back, please?
Yeah, just responsiveness, please.
Bro, but those were the greatest times, man, when there was little hidden stuff in the OS you'd find, or there was just some little magic that you would discover.
And the GameCube where you hold Z as you're turning it on, so you get like a different tone while it's like going.
What? I didn't know that.
And if you hold Z on then like 4 controllers or 3 controllers, you'd get like
dude, my favorite was Master System had that snail game on it with if you had no game. And I was just like, I've got a free game, and it was ridiculous. It wasn't even a game, but it was like
I think later revisions of Master System had different games on it as well. I can't remember. Maybe Hang On was there. I don't remember which one it was, but
inside you mean like on the internal?
Yeah, the internal built-in game. Like they changed that, and it may have been more common in Europe, I guess, because the Master System lived a lot longer here. But yeah.
And then Sega Saturn had a CD player. I'm sure they all played CDs at the time, but it was a spaceship on the Sega Saturn.
Did you remember HD DVD, dude? Sorry, I don't know why.
For the week, HD DVD was a thing.
The look and sound
I had
was perfect.
one movie.
Yeah,
I had one
it was
movie
like 1 week. It was so, I mean, it was so short-lived. It was just
super
ridiculous.
By Blu-ray instantly.
Yeah, super eclipsed by Blu-ray. John, VR, I got to ask you.
Yeah, please.
So, big screen, super small, light, still has issues. Apple's going to charge you $8,500 friggin' dollars to get whatever. Do you think VR's missed its major window, or do you think a company like Apple could easily restart it?
I think the curve of VR might resemble the what you often see. You often see that meme about how like people who are still ignorant, like their confidence level is really high, and then as you learn a little bit more, it dips down, and then it slowly goes back up. I actually think VR following a similar trajectory where when it reemerged those years ago, it had this initial like big hit where it's like, whoa, VR's back, and like this huge interest level peaked, and then it kind of crashed. I actually think it's been climbing back up, and I think a lot of it has to do with the Quest, the Meta Quest. I think the Quest is extremely good, and I think that all the other like wired VR solutions, they got nothing on it at this point. It's over for them. Even stuff like PSVR 2. I love PSVR 2, and it has some hardware features that you don't even get on the Quest, of course, but like that experience of having that light all-in-one headset with those pancake lenses of the Quest 3, and then all those capabilities to interface with your PC. Everyone that I've shown this to has just been like just letting people try it. I think I've sold like 3 or 4 of them, not intentionally, but like they tried it and like, oh my God. Like the general perception was, I thought you needed a big computer to run this from. And when they see that you can just have this little headset that just works basically like a phone, right? Like it turns on and off like a phone. You just plug it in when it needs to be charged, and you're golden. And the fact that that headset also works wirelessly with PC VR for those that actually want the high-end experience. I think that's just killer. And I think slowly but surely that type of VR is the one that's going to take off. And I think I do think people will enjoy it. It's not going to be like, it's never going to take over. It's never going to become the de facto standard, right? I say never. Maybe I don't know what the future holds like 100 years from
until
now.
they hook into the brain, dude. That's when it'll be.
But for the time being, I think these headsets are just going to keep getting smaller. They're going to get slimmer. And they're going to continue to impress. And yeah, a lot of games these days are being made by small teams, and I actually think that's okay because they can make super compelling experiences. Like there's this there's this simple table tennis game, I'm blanking on the name, that you can get on the Quest, and like the physics, the simulation of the table tennis in that game. I let people that don't play video games put that thing on and just start playing ping pong in VR, and they were having a blast and actually doing super well. And they take it off and they're like, how much does this cost?
Yeah.
Like that's their response, because they get it. They understand. And that's what it took, is it had to get down. The Quest is the point where like VR suddenly started to become more viable for everyone in a way. All the stuff before that was like, this is what, this is for the hardcore. This is like this is the niche audience. Even PSVR, which did really well, although PSVR was like barely, like, because of the move controllers, which are terrible, it was missing an entire half of the VR experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is the hand control. So yeah, I am so all in on the Quest, and I feel like more and more good games, even new IPs, are like starting to show up. Like somebody mentions Asgard's Wrath 2, for instance, which is a huge, expansive, amazing RPG on a portable VR headset, and it rules. Plus, again, there's the Steam VR space. There's so many VR games in Steam. There's a lot of cool stuff still being made, even if it's not like super high budget. And if you have a Quest now, you can play it wirelessly on there. So I'm way into that now, and I do think VR will continue to do well.
I hope his comments are the truth and not mine. I hope they turn out to be the.
I just wonder.
I do too.
I wonder what they'd have to do for like the market share to be attractive enough for like AAA devs to really make like full experiences for the VR. Because
you say full experiences, but here's the problem. I don't think people want to wear a headset for the amount of time.
That's true too.
That they take for a big. So I think that's actually like not the approach to take, at least not yet. I mean, Asgard's Wrath 2 kind of is that, but I think what makes it work there specifically on the Quest versus other like prior wire solutions is that because you can put it to sleep like a phone, you can like
just
and
walk
I found
away.
myself doing this. You just pick it up off the shelf and play for like 5 or 10 minutes, and then just hit the power button, take it back off, and you can kind of chip at it more like a portable game system. And you can do it anywhere where there's like enough space, I guess. And even if there's not enough space, you can still kind of do it. And that's what was missing before. Like I realized when I would hook up even PSVR 2, which is simple, but like headsets to my PC, you get out the headset, unwrap the wire, you plug in the wires, fiddle with the software, make sure everything's connected and working, load up the correct like front end page, make sure it starts up properly. Oh no, the device isn't quite detected right, or something's wrong with the it's
map
just,
your room now.
It's really, really annoying and time consuming. You have to be like, I am going to play a VR game for this X period, and it better be worth it because of all this hassle. Now that's gone. And it's even true with the wireless PC stuff, where you just like click on like the link button. Basically, it's like it just instantly connects to your PC wirelessly. You're just there. It's so insane. I love where we're going with this.
I would say I have all those systems, including the Pico, which Pico's a little more comfortable on my face.
Pico's really good too, actually.
Yeah, the compression isn't near as bad. I mean, I totally get where somebody's saying wireless has some compression issues. I get it. I can ignore it instant. It takes less than a millisecond for me to ignore.
Oh, it's so easy. And I'm super sensitive to compression stuff.
That's why I'm bringing this up. Yeah. So I'm doing DCS, and I'm doing yesterday I did some gaming, and I would say I agree or hope all this is true, but the more I see what people are talking about, the more I see AR. Like, VR will never take off on its own. I don't think.
No.
I think that it'll be AR, VR, and I just am waiting for the AR game that's like Magic the Gathering, but you put your card down, 3D creature comes out of your card because it's reading a QRC code on the card, and somehow that side thing catches on that also is AR. Pokemon, for instance. I feel like I'm waiting for that. I feel, because, dude, I'm so burned out on buying into VR that I just want to punt anybody who mentions checking a VR game out, because it feels like it's just such a it is such a landmine of depression whenever I look at all the systems I have and all the games that were gonna be a thing. I'm really happy Asgard's Wrath became a thing, but even that's got a bit of a weird history with like it looking worse than the original in some ways, because it's supposed to play on the, which I get. I totally get. But when somebody sees it, you'll get that question of like, why does this not? I looked and I saw that one, and you're like, yeah, I get it. It's on its own thing. It need, you know.
I want it
to do good. Go ahead.
I think for AR specifically, I'd also like the form factor to be way better, like just like small glasses,
dude,
or
big
something
screen's
like that.
Close.
Obviously,
I gotta admit,
big screen. Yeah, I want to check that out. That's right,
dude. It's you're never letting your friend borrow it because it's made for you. But now that I've been testing it, I'm like, oh shit! It's got a tighter FOV than I would like, and its colors are a bit. It's very dim. It's insanely dim, but it's zero light bleed because it's against your face. So there's a trade-off, but it's not bad. But I was playing it going like, one more iteration is all that
smallest
style needs.
VR headset.
Yeah, because it's just like goggles for an Olympic swimmer. I mean, it's a little bit more. It's more.
How do they fit that tech
goggles
in there? Like
you do a gel insert and then they 3D print it. It's almost like when you get dental
the screens and stuff. I think he's talking about like the little micro OLED or whatever.
Oh, it's just it's the pancake with ultra thin pancakes. And
dude,
they
it's nuts. That
holy shit.
I haven't tried it yet, but like looking at the tech, what they've done shrinking that down, I need to get on that,
dude. And here's the thing, that's the magic.
127 grams, dude.
If I can, and they're coming out supposedly with a form factor that will somehow merge the custom face pad into a generic one. That's coming soon, like almost like super soft on the back but harder on the front or something. But here's the thing, I want to be able to take this little device and play it, and then also it's that small. Dude, you guys don't even realize, it's ridiculous. My Pico is super light, and this thing is 126 grams, I think, and the Pico's 216, or like, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous how small it is. It that takes away so much. It takes away all of the issues of comfort and that kind of stuff, and just makes it about heat, sweat, which they've also got fans in it and stuff like that. And it takes away pretty much light bleed, which is a big deal. I still get light bleed in the Pico. I noticed a couple days ago, right at the bridge of my nose. I noticed just a tiny bit of light coming in from the bottom, which I guess I just hadn't, picked up when I first tested it. But it's very close, man. I mean, it's pretty insane.
And somebody mentions, do they make prescription inserts? And or they absolutely do. I use them on my all my headsets now. Actually,
no glasses, no worry. Yeah, I mean, and they're not expensive because they 3D print those too, right?
Yeah,
because they're not expensive.
Not expensive.
Yeah, it's like a Walmart.
So,
but
isn't micro OLED really expensive, or is it just that one Samsung TV that I was looking at that was insanely expensive, like 150,000?
It's not really quite like.
I don't even think it's the same.
Because no, it's a different thing.
Yeah, it's a different technology.
Different type of micro.
Yeah,
you're talking about micro LED. You're talking about micro LED, maybe.
Oh, which is different than micro OLED. Oh,
yeah,
okay,
it's different.
Yeah.
The thing is we're getting here, which is awesome. AR, I like, and using it in your office. I don't know if you guys saw, but another company called like Screener or something is doing something as well with theirs, where it's more of the AR, but it's multiple Windows screens, and they've got like supposedly really high resolution monitors and stuff. I mean, my Pico, I can play in Windows fine, but with no issue. I wouldn't want to, because you're still using your sensors, which just feels terrible hitting a trigger trying to hit the X button on Windows.
I do think, however, the hand tracking on the Quest 3 feels amazing.
Hand tracking's pretty sweet, isn't it?
Like, it's nuts how like well it maps to a 3D model, and it just really feels like that's an extension of your hands. Like, I let my wife try it. It's like, here, just try to like browse Amazon on this thing. She put it on and just instantly was using it like a phone, but didn't actually initially click like what was happening. Like, she's like, oh yeah, I'm browsing Amazon. What? It's like, well, you're not touching anything. And then it's kind of clicks like, oh my God, you're right. This is nuts.
Yeah, the Pico has last gen hand gesture stuff, and that works too for grabbing things. I do think that kind of stuff, hand or eye tracking, is the best idea because of obviously like the foveated rendering and stuff.
Pico 4 is weird because it does kind of sit between Quest 2 and 3, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a very middle ground.
It has the pancake lenses of the Quest 3, which helps a lot. I feel like
the big issue, I gotta admit, John, is its coloring is off. See, the easiest way to describe it. You can get the screens. You can sideload. Yeah, you can sideload a app from Android because sideloading this thing is ridiculous. Like it's just sideloads after you touch developer 7 times in Android. But there's an app to adjust colors, and you need it because if you were to play like a racing game and you had your forest on the right. The Quest, I have a Reverb, which I love. I have a Varjo, which I love. Their color representation is just better. There's something richer in that than the Pico.
The Pico,
so you have,
Pico looks weird.
Yeah, so you have to do some adjustments. I would also say I like the Pico's controllers the most, which I never thought I would say, but they have this amazing design that goes over the wrist.
They do feel good, but I don't know. I really like the Quest 3's like little. I feel like they're so light and so small that it just feels really cool.
Are they going back into your hand in the Quest 3 as well? No, or is there's no ring?
There is no ring on the Quest 3.
That's what it is. Yeah.
You just hold them. And
that's awesome.
They feel so lightweight and small that way that it finally feels like you're not moving around an object as much as it's just like you're moving your hand. And it feels really natural, I think.
Yeah, I can't wait till this stuff catches on, man. I mean, like the lazier I can be, the happier I'll be. I just want to be able to sit back and edit in Premiere by going snap, snap, snap.
Remember in COVID, they were just huge, man. People just going into like those VR chat and stuff, buying like full-on body kits and going to parties and shit because they can't go outside.
That sounds really risque. I didn't know that was happening. I didn't know full body suit. I've seen Upload the TV show, and I know what you mean by full body suits.
Controllers and stuff, and
really,
like they map their legs and.
I think Steam has
about those treadmills. Those VR treadmills.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Asa's got one. He does a stream where he's still playing Skyrim in that thing, running in Arma. I gotta admit, I love running in video games. I love running in real life, but I ain't gonna run in Skyrim. Screw that. Like that game
I feel like it would
just
give me a headache. I'm so VR gives me a headache. There's nothing. I don't get motion sickness from games. I don't get anything but VR. But the one I had was pretty trash anyways. Or it wasn't that bad for the price it was. I had like the Lenovo WMR.
Oh, no, it wasn't bad for how cheap they were. Right. I mean, they got you into VR. But the resion why I bring this up is because also I promised people we'd finish out and talk about Praydog, the Flat to VR. And I got about 8 hours in it. It is exactly what I expected in both the good and the bad, and I got to tell people it's awesome. It's free. The guy, there's a bunch of great stuff in it. Some games run. Most games require, some fiddling. Some games are very far away from being ready, but it does show, man. I mean, I was doing Outer Worlds, and they have one issue in it that's well known. But I was playing around, walking around, going, "Oh shit!" I sort of want to play Outer Worlds again. Don't know how long I would play in 3D in that, but. It's free. It's a ton of work it's a ton of work, and this gives modders the ability to use that. He's totally open, He's just like, here it is, which means a modder who loves whatever game, let's say, whatever Unreal 4 and 5 game that they like, they can jump in and try to get it sorted. And I think that it's awesome.
Dang, I mean, I need to try this. I just got home this afternoon, so
yeah, because you went to France, right?
Yeah, I was in France for a couple weeks or whatever. So that was nice. Visiting the in-laws, taking time away.
Yeah, but it's always good to defrag.
Just came back today, and this is the first thing I do. So, all right.
There we go. And you should jump into VR with it. You should try it. I mean, Unreal 4 and 5, I think a lot of people confused in their brain. It just makes all Unreal game, or it makes everything just work. It doesn't. But, some of the games that I tried worked really well. I mean, I've tried real VR games that suck in the control scheme.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I need to give a shout out again. I've been praising them a lot. The Team Beef ports to Quest of like Doom, Quake,
gotcha.
Jedi Knight, all that, or Jedi Knight 2. Like, dude, playing Doom on that, it doesn't seem like it should be as good as it is, but it's actually one of my favorite VR things.
So what is it? Control or the aim or the movement or just everything?
It's the feeling of moving. Basically, like, first of all, when you apply like the 3D weapon packs, all the weapons are done in like, it's a 3D model in your hand, just like any real shooter.
Right.
And just moving through that world, and if you hold down the other thing, you actually get like a two-handed mode, and like aiming the shotgun and like going around corners, and just like it just feels amazing to play, especially weirdly enough with Brutal Doom. Like throw on Brutal Doom in there and it just feels nuts to just like mow down enemies in Doom in a way that really surprised me. Like I actually played through the entirety of Doom 1 and Doom 2, and now going through Sigil and Sigil 2 in the Quest. Because it just works. It's like super smooth, 90 frames per second on the headset. It's Doom. You can apply any mods or anything you want. You can use like voxel Doom in there. You can do there's so much crazy stuff in there. They built a whole front end loader for it, and that's just Doom. Like again, I was just messing with the Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Academy, where it's like,
I love those games,
you're playing like Jedi Outcast now in VR, just on a Quest, and it's even like, lightsabers that actually function and like work properly in there, and it's like this is amazing.
It's already farther along than Jedi Survivor. I said it.
Oh yeah, it is. Doom 3 even runs natively on the Quest in VR.
That's
like the
crazy,
because
Doom 3 was I had some issues with that when it came out, like some performance issues.
It's working real well on the Quest 3 specifically. You can actually play it with shadows now, and it actually looks like proper full Doom 3 on a headset. Team Beef has like Quake 4 up and running, and that's in their Patreon line.
What about the best shooter from the old days ever made, Power Slave?
So I love Power Slave. That hasn't been done yet, but there is actually like a Doom mod for it, I think.
Oh, is
Quake's in there? Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I'll check.
Quake games are in there for sure. They've even got Wrath, Aeon, the new Wrath game from 3D Realms.
From 3D Realms.
Oh shit,
that's already been adapted
so nice
in VR.
In VR. Actually,
damn. Do you pay for each one of these?
No. So the Team Beef stuff is all free, but you need to own the game. So you essentially you sideload the Team Beef thing, and then you just drop it into the right folder on your Quest, and there you go. And I actually think they've done versions of this for Pico as well. You might want to check out.
Shit. Yeah, I'll check it out. Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, that exists. So those guys, man, Team Beef, like. It's absolutely worth playing. Super, super good.
Yeah, I agree with you on the AAA thing. I want AAA on VR. I absolutely do, but I also totally sort of do understand that the momentary pop-in game is going to be big. It's the reason why a lot of my friends will be like, "What's a VR game?" "Oh, Beat Saber," and you're like, "Dude, that's 18 years old. Like, what are we fucking doing?" Like, but it is a pop-in and out game, and it's fun. You can jump in and out, and I think that I think they both have a place. I think Assassin's Creed and Ubisoft deserve some credit. I don't know how Nexus got made. I know it surprised me when they announced it, and usually I hear little things, but I was surprised, and from what I'm hearing, it is generally good. Would you agree with that?
I like it. I agree. I actually like it better than a lot of the recent Assassin's Creed games, because it's not an open world game. It's smaller scope.
Right.
It's actually reminded me more of like, if somebody said, what if you took like Assassin's Creed and combined it with like Dishonored or Thief?
Yeah, that's like, I thought it was Dishonored at first.
Here's a smaller map. It's a big map, but it's not like the open world.
Yeah, right.
And here's the things you must do in that, right? Your targets, your objectives, and you're basically exploring like these levels instead. And it was like, dang, this is like super fun. And like doing the stealth kill with like, you just like flick your wrist back like that, like while holding the controller, and the blade pops out, and it actually feels like super satisfying to just like flick your wrist back, walk up to a dude with the blade. It's like, okay, this is legit.
We should remember that also one of my favorite games ever on VR is Star Trek Bridge Crew. Ubisoft has actually been sort of, I don't know if they'd be a champion, but and Bridge Crew, I mean, it's ridiculously fun. And I had heard about Assassin's Creed out of the blue during that event, and I remember them announcing it. I was like, I haven't heard anything about this, and then started seeing it, and it looked pretty good. Then the reviews came out, and there were a couple people that really thought it was an excellent game. Not an Assassin's Creed game. It's its own thing. It's like...
Right.
And you play them, right? You play heroes from Assassin's Creed games. Am I reading that right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. Which is actually cool because it means that you get to go to the different time periods.
Yeah.
So it's got like Connor from AC3. It's got I'm blanking all their names. It's got Connor, AC
Ezio,
Odyssey and
Odyssey
Ezio in it.
Is
so it's one of the Odyssey characters.
Odyssey, Alexios, or Katarina, right?
Yeah,
Katarina.
It's her. Yeah.
Is that her name?
Cassandra.
So, yeah, you play
Cassandra.
Yes, it's Cassandra.
Well, we all knew we were wrong. Did you notice that? We were all like, okay, we'll say it's right, but we all know that that's wrong.
Yeah, it's Cassandra. Awesome. Cassandra sounds right, yes. Yeah. And what's funny is they actually like take that into account, like how I think Cassandra only has like the hidden blade on her left arm or something.
Yeah, there's something.
And sure enough, in VR, it's that way. You only have the hidden blade just on your left arm. So they actually kind of match it to the character. And I was like, this is really cool. This is a legit cool standalone VR game that plays awesome. Like,
somebody brought up Squadrons, and I do have to admit I enjoyed the shit out of Star Wars Squadrons.
Cool.
Is there a good VR mod for Dishonored? Now I'm very interested.
Luke Ross, I think, is the guy who does a lot of mods. I don't know if he's done one.
The tough part with those is always like adapting it to VR is more than just like making it look 3D. You gotta do the controls. That's why the Team Beef stuff is so good, because it's a full VR integration. Not just like
it's not just controller and you can just look around, right?
Yeah,
right.
John Carmack admitted on Lex Friedman's podcast that's his biggest mistake. He believed that controller was good enough. He was very taken by surprise. He said when his idea was headset matters, controllers do not. We're going to use a 360 controller for all of our stuff. It just makes sense. And he said I love the thing about him, man. Dude, he stuns me. Like, that guy can talk 70 levels above me in tech to where I feel like it's like an ancient library I opened. But then he's just like, he has some of the smartest business. He's like, I handled this wrong, and we were completely wrong on the controller. He was like, we should have done, should have immediately understood that it matters in VR that you have hands.
launching the original Oculus Rift without that was not good.
Yeah,
I think that. They figured it out with touch very early on, but like that should have been part of the original package.
Yeah, dude, that's somebody. I don't know if you guys have ever done an interview with him. That's somebody you guys. I would love to see you sit down with like a John Carmack.
I would feel so small.
Oh, so would I. That's dude. People have asked me because they know I'm always talking about him. I follow that dude like a stalker, man. Everywhere he goes, I'm watching that video. People are like, you should ask him. I'm like, first of all, he'd never come on. Well, he may, but it doesn't matter. I wouldn't even know how to ask him questions. And I'm not pretending. I'm saying that I wouldn't want to repeat myself, but also he talks at a level. The Lex Friedman podcast is 3 hours of him talking about
5 hours.
VR, 5 hours. No, you're right. It was 4 or 5 of him talking about VR buffer frames. And I'm just like, you pick up 10% of what he says, then I go back and re-listen, and I'm like, all right, I think I understand what he's talking about right here. He's great. Yeah, it would be awesome. What else do we got to discuss here before we wrap it up, Abzy? Do we have any?
I mean, I just in terms of news, I saw this. I don't know if it's a rumor or I think it was like a job listing of Horizon MMO from the Horizon Forbidden West type thing.
NC
so I was
Soft.
wondering what you would think that would be like, or what you would want it to be like. You know what I mean? Or what your expectations are for that? Because
it's the MMO... Guild Wars lineage, guys.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
So it's not the same devs.
It's NC Soft, I think, is what they said. Because I had this data as well. Let me look real quick. So I'm okay with it. I just think that Horizon has a slight issue. You've got your clans, your reasons for classes, all that kind of stuff. And there's different locations in Horizon, because I love Horizon Zero Dawn. There's all those different locations you can do. But an MMO is a weird fit. Sony's done a deal with them 2 years ago or a year ago. They signed a big deal with these guys to do, co-development of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. John, do you like and if you know, you don't have to talk about it or pretend you don't know, but does the idea of an MMO in Horizon...
No.
Okay. Fucking knew where that was going. I didn't even know how to ask it and already knew the answer.
I have negative interest in that.
Okay. Yeah. And
Yeah.
you're talking to somebody who loved. I like Horizon very much. I just
I enjoyed them.
Yeah, the idea of that.
I don't want an MMO of that. That just I would not play it. So
Yeah.
it doesn't.
It would be
Does nothing
difficult
for
to
me.
engage with it in a way that made sense and made me feel like I was a part of the world, because Aloy's the hero. This is the problem with huge hero-inspired things. You're always the side piece.
Right.
You're like, yeah, I'm over here doing stuff, and it never feels like it matters. Do we have anything else, but so we can let John go? Do we have any big news stuff? Nothing.
Big news stuff.
There's
I
been
didn't
no
see
news,
anything.
right? There's been nothing
Yeah.
big other than unfortunate layoffs and stuff.
Yeah, layoffs and
Oh,
stuff. I haven't seen anything huge, honestly, this week.
Whoa. French watchdog hits Sony with $13.5 million fine for PS4 controller practices. That just popped right now.
It's crazy. What? For what?
I don't know. Was there an issue with the PS4 controller? Maybe there was there was a thing saying that the quality of the PS5 or the Xbox and Sony controllers was being investigated. Maybe that's what it is. And then Xbox announced Game Pass Assassin's Creed Valhalla, John's favorite game, is coming to
Jesus Christ.
He loves it. He
That
loves it.
fucking game.
I love it. 2 hours later,
But
and he's still
also,
like,
is one of his actual favorite games, Resident Evil 2, is also on
All right.
Game Pass now.
That
There
makes
you
up
go.
for it. That makes
dude,
up for it.
that's like positive, negative.
There
John,
you go.
anything you want to talk about for your future that you guys are doing that you can talk about, or any bits before we let you go?
It's hard to even say because it's just like I'm just getting back to the new year. I hope we had a good year last year. Hopefully it continues. Hopefully I won't put my foot in my mouth as much as I tend to do. But
Oh, dude, you're fine.
I can't help it because I'm kind of unfiltered. So it's just my nature, right?
What about a
but-
game? What is 2024? Is there if I say 2024, what's
Most
a game
anticipated?
that is there like some particular title?
Oh my God, what could that be? I feel like I haven't even thought what's coming out in 2024.
Dragon's Dogma 2, baby.
Dragon's Dogma,
That's
Stalker 2.
high.
Boom. That's high.
It's high on the list.
Stalker 2. Stalker 2. We
Stalker
haven't seen
2.
much on.
I'll
man.
say Metroid Prime 4.
Oh man, that's never coming out.
It's coming out.
That's
never coming
that's
out.
what's coming out when
Believe.
Bloodborne comes out on PC. That's when-
John's like,
that's when
Valhalla sucks, but believe in this game coming out, man. I just want to make sure those
Yes,
2 bits are known.
exactly. Exactly.
It'll come out when Hollow Knight 2 comes out. So-
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah. I didn't track that until recently, and then somebody mentioned
Yeah.
Hollow. I
No,
didn't
I
track
saw
on that.
Yeah.
Another one that comes to mind that I want to mention, actually, okay, obviously Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Looking at that,
Mhm.
Yeah.
that's interesting. Was Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth coming out this year?
Yes, my
in
friend,
like
it is.
20 days, dude. I
Oh,
can't wait. 20
Dude, I
days.
can't. Oh my God, it's soon.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Oh, Hellblade 2 is probably.
Oh,
gonna hit.
Hellblade 2's got to be
Hellblade,
up there,
yeah.
man. I forgot about
Yeah.
Hellblade 2. How the hell did that
Is this
happen?
real? Remember when I was like, we were watching the trailer, I was like, wait,
Dude,
is this
yeah,
I
you're
thought it
like,
was
is this real?
FMV
It's
at
like,
one
what did you
point,
think they
yeah.
did? Really, like give people torches
That
and put them in
mocap,
caves?
dude.
Right,
I
right.
don't know what the hell
Yeah.
that was all
Oh
about,
man,
dude.
Space Marine 2.
Yeah,
Space
Space
Marine
Marine
2.
2.
I'm actually stoked for that. That looks great. And
Yeah.
is this going to be the year? Is this the year when Skull and Bones comes out?
Oh boy.
Is this it?
Oh
Is it
boy.
so I still
Dude.
have capture from Skull and Bones from 2017 in my hard drive.
2017. Yeah.
Like it's been floating around. So like
It's been having an identity
literally and
crisis, man.
figuratively
I have
floating
2
around.
leaked pictures from behind the scenes of Beyond Good and Evil 2. So that might even trump you on
Okay.
the
Is that
age.
actually gonna
Listen,
come out?
though, like I stated, when
Weird
that,
things have happened.
Unfortunately, when that writer passed away last year,
Sure, yeah.
people from his development team stated, "You will this will happen," and that was on his announcement of his death. I would think it would be insanely poor. You know, they could be wrong, but it certainly sounded like they were working on it. And all the rumors I've heard is yes, it's definitely in trouble.
Hope there's
There's
something.
definitely,
Yeah.
yeah.
Black
Black
Myth
Myth
Wukong.
Wukong. Black Myth
Yeah.
Wukong.
Yeah,
Good job,
yeah.
chat.
Yeah.
Dude.
God damn.
And by the way,
Okay.
fuck anybody
Puddles.
out there who called
The
me a liar when I
puddles.
said that was real, because it
Yeah.
was. So
Yeah.
Another one I want to mention is Penny's Big Breakaway from Evening Star. Those are the guys that did Sonic Mania.
let me check this
Oh,
out.
shit.
Penny's Big
Big
Breakaway.
Breakaway. Because like Sonic Mania was freaking amazing, and these guys know. You don't know Sonic Mania?
I have not played a Sonic, dude. I'm dead to Sonic. Sonic's dead to me. Is what I should say.
That's one of my favorite platform games of all time.
It is my favorite. Sonic 1 and 2. I feel like.
Well, then you gotta play. You better play Sonic Mania then.
All right, check it out.
If you love those games,
don't
play
steer
Mania.
me wrong, John, because I'm coming after you. If I don't
seriously,
like this game,
I think you will like it.
And these guys did that. Penny's Big Breakaway did that.
Evening Star. These are the same guys that made Sonic Mania. This is their new game, I expect it will have some pretty sweet, like movement feel to it. I'm trying to reach out and see if we can do some sort of like behind the scenes thing on it.
As a big fan,
these guys have their own engine tech like built from the ground up that they've done. Like it's all there's no Unity here, no Unreal. This is all their original stuff. Like it's seriously, it's a cool little project. So, also somebody, of course, No Rest for the Wicked.
Oh, that was like my highlight of the Game Awards.
Wait a minute. Which one's that one?
That's the one from the developers of Ori, Moon Studio.
It's like an ARPG.
Yeah.
Why are you so down about it, man? It was such a
not
cool
down
trailer,
about
dude.
it. I just I'm not down about it. I just need to see it a little bit more. I love them.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
just third isometric was a little off. I just wasn't ready. The characterization in Ori is so crazy to me and beautiful and mind blowing and like it will go down in history as one of the premier titles.
It's so freaking good.
It's it's gorgeous. Music, everything. So it takes a lot, when it's like third person Fallout, man. I remember when Fallout went to third person, people were like ready to karate chop the developers. So it's just I'm that guy right now. First person, yeah. First person,
yes.
Sorry. Yeah.
The reverse.
Yeah, the reverse. The exact reverse of what I said is true. Just want to make sure.
But the face, like you didn't. I love the art style. It kind of looked like League of Legends Arcane.
It did, but
TV
you know what
show.
I felt? I felt a little bit like when Sega came out there and nailed it with their trailer until we saw Golden Axe 3, and I was like, "Whoa, that's rough." Ori just made me pull back a bit and go, "I need to look at it closer."
Okay.
Yeah, I thought just closer. I love those guys. They can probably do no wrong.
That and Pony Island 2 were the ones that just...
Pony Island 2? What?
Yeah,
why did that pop?
I love that dev. Like Pony Island and
Is that
Inscription
real?
are some of my favorite games.
Or do you really like this
Pony
dev?
Island.
Pony?
Yeah, I love that dev.
This isn't like
his games are
My
always
Little Pony.
Insane. No. It's fucked. It's like a horror-ish game. Yeah. It's called Pony Island, and like you start it and you're thinking like the menu is designed as if it was like a Disney game or whatever. Then you go in and it's much darker than that for sure. Yeah.
Somebody said Stellar Blade. Then we got Elden Ring DLC.
Yeah, Stellar Blade looks really freaking good. And thinking of Korea, I want that. And I'm also curious about that Dokei V game that's also being done in Korea. I don't know what that will be, if it'll be good or anything, but it sure caught my eye with that original trailer.
Dude, John, do you notice something Abzy brought up? I think it was you, right? About the nationality thing. So I think it was you that said, what was it? Chinese games look really good.
Yeah.
What did you say? I can't. How did you?
I think I said so. Japanese games usually don't focus on graphics too much, but mostly gameplay. I feel like
I don't agree,
especially JRPGs. No, I mean like they don't go for like super ultra realistic or graphics or like
it's
have a ton of like
particle
effects and stuff. But then you see those Chinese games, which are always trying to do the cool like Unreal type stuff, and a lot of particle effects,
right?
But the gameplay isn't always there. I don't know. I said something like that. I like generalized them.
I actually sort of agree, John. I mean, I mean. I'm not saying. I don't think he's saying that they don't look good, but they go Japanese.
I'm just saying, look at stuff like what Kojima Productions has done. Look at stuff like all of Capcom's RE Engine games. Absolutely cutting edge tech there.
That for sure. Yeah.
They're not the only ones. I mean, there's also even stuff like that just came out, like Hi-Fi Rush, for instance, which is like stylized.
That is Japanese, isn't it?
That is Japanese.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I wasn't aware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more than that. It's just that there's the lower mid-budget stuff obviously shows.
Yeah, I was thinking of like Ease.
Limitations.
Yeah, I was thinking of like Ease and like even like Persona and stuff. I mean, Persona looks really cool art direction wise, but I mean
the last mainline Persona 5 also ran on PS3. So
dude,
shit,
nuts.
did it?
Keep that in mind. Also, Squaresoft. You look at Square Enix. Actually, look at the Final Fantasy VII remake. What they're doing with the new one.
Yeah, Square.
Final
we
Fantasy
did
16 mention in there. Like all the big publishers are still doing.
Even
like
10. Remember how crazy of a leap 10 was?
And in the past, I mean, if you go back to PS2, Japanese games were way ahead of Western games in terms of pushing tech. Like way ahead.
Yeah.
During that era. But I would say so. I think there's still plenty of Japanese studios pushing like great tech,
true
and
graphic
art,
and tech,
and coupling that with awesome gameplay. There's just a few, maybe well-known ones that are perhaps either lower budget or targeting a different type of visual spec.
Yeah. Can I would brutally admit I didn't think Resident Evil as Japanese.
I didn't think of Capcom, dude.
I didn't
even think of Capcom.
I just think of them as the
all
Western
Japanese.
side, but it's all Japanese. I don't know why, but I'm like in my brain
because they're like more they're like Western games, like the genre aren't really JRPGs. I guess
I would also say while they don't necessarily push the highest tech, From Software games look pretty freaking good.
Artistically, they know what they're doing. Yeah.
Also, Armored Core 6, I would say, is pretty technically awesome. Like, it looks super smooth. It runs really well.
Karak doesn't like it. I love it.
I think it's amazing. But that's okay. It ain't for everybody.
The game's rough as fuck looking. Anyway, but
I'll have to if you play it on PC, it's not.
Anyway, so I want to thank. No, seriously, though, I do want to thank you, man. You're hilarious to talk to, but it's the best thing about it, dude, is you have the ability to talk. Like I was saying about some others, is high level, but then at the same time still show passion for games, which admittedly is hard. Like it pops up, but as somebody like you guys, your team, man, you guys, the amount of content you guys put out is like unbelievable, and then you're also doing the retro ones, which are awesome. And trying to like still look back at titles that have missed us, and your passion for things like games preservation, which I'll admit I never think of or rarely.
That's okay. A lot of people don't.
Yeah, it doesn't really track, and so to hear you bring those things up is awesome. But dude, you're genuinely a fucking good guy. And the honest truth is, when I see that kind of stuff, and this is why you'll see me sometimes on your comment, I'll come in and pop off on my own because I'll be like, fuck you. But it's because you're just saying. The thing is, people have forgotten how to disagree. They've forgotten how to just be like, oh, that's a thing, and it's just this person. It means nothing. It's I disagree with my own family. It doesn't mean I'm going to kick them off. It doesn't mean I'm going to do the things people say on Twitter. And it's awesome to see you guys do this. And dude, I wish you guys not only the best of luck. I'm actually really excited to see what you guys continue to do, because I've started to see the other. And I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. He's newer. I didn't see him as much.
Oliver.
Thank you, Oliver. And so I'm starting to see him occasionally, and it's like you guys just sort of grow. You get staff that pop up, and I start to see him more.
Oliver's been amazing.
Yeah, and it's just awesome to see everybody popping off and doing stuff. And almost every game, I'll be like, man, this is interesting tech, and I'll go look. You guys already have a video on it, of course, because you know some of the people. But it's been phenomenal to see your guys' growth, man. And I mean, I wish the best for you guys, because I think that as long as you guys push it, and I know you do, that talking about game tech doesn't mean saying a game sucks, even if it looks bad, because fun factor does matter. And I think that's where you come across, where you're like, here's the tech. Oh, I'm going to look at retro gaming. And you're like, here's why this game is awesome. And I saw you post and say, Jesus, I worked, and somebody doesn't like it. But at the same time, to me, I don't know why people don't just cherish those things, because it's like, dude, it shows right there that you're one of the people that'll play a game that won't look the best. It's older. Maybe it's the first time you played it. Maybe you've loved it forever. But you'll be like, it's awesome. People they're called games for a reason. Otherwise, they'd be just screenshots that, like, it'd be Dragon's Lair. They wouldn't care about the gameplay part, and it's awesome to see somebody like yourself. I wish you guys all the luck, man. You're a tremendous person, and dude, you've been super awesome. and you've
Feeling
been
is mutual.
highly critical of things that happen in the industry that I think is awesome, regardless if people, get pissy about it. Everybody else, when you get a chance, subscribe. You can follow him on Twitter, though I know he doesn't necessarily love Twitter. It's Dark1X, right?
It's useful. I get a lot of good stuff out of it, and there's actually a lot of good people over there, I would say, still. Even with as crazy as it's been, I appreciate the good ones.
And
there
you're
are
Blue
a lot
Sky
of them.
as well, or what's the other one?
Yeah.
Threads
Blue
and
Sky on there.
Blue Sky. So you guys can follow him there.
I do that. Also, I have to give a little shout out to RZ, the Jewel of Faramore, which is a game that I did some design work on with my good friend Seth, and it's going to be coming out in February.
Give me the name again, because I can post that.
Seth? Sorry.
So, he goes by Dopley, but it's basically the idea. It's called RZ, the Jewel of Faramore, and the idea that he had was, hey, what if we tried to make Zelda? Remember the Zelda CDI, which is like,
yes, I do.
The king of YouTube poops. What if there was like an actual sequel to that, but the gameplay was good?
Oh, no shit. Yeah.
Nice. I like that. Nice.
One thing that was missing.
It's exactly like, it's a really weird idea, and he freaking like went all in on it, and I was really happy that I get to work on that as well. And it's fun. I think it plays great. It's pretty old school. It's got a unique design to it. Like every background is hand painted. Like it's actually not tiled. So it's literally like fully painted. They even got we've got the voice actor that did Link's voice back in the CDI game.
Damn. That's crazy.
The guy that goes like, well, excuse me, princess.
Yeah, exactly. He did a little bit of voice for this. One of the artists did the overworld map and one of the levels as well from back then. And the dialogue is super cringe. It is extremely cringe.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So I'm very curious to see what people think. Definitely give it a look when it hits. It is, coming to Steam, digital platforms, but it's also, Limited Run as the publisher, so it'll get physical versions.
Mm-hmm. February 13th, I posted it in chat as well, folks. Somebody actually had already seen it and posted it in chat. They were like, you worked on that?
Wishlist. It really helps when you guys wishlist games.
So. It does. It's surprisingly super important to wishlist.
Yeah. So definitely wishlist that bad boy. And I'm curious to see what people think when it comes out. It's nuts.
Dude, trust me, it's Steam. No one's good. Like the nuts part will probably be the lowest amount of of rebound you get, because dude, the stuff I've seen on Steam has made me go like, what the hell is happening to humanity?
That's true.
It's like, damn, son. All right, well, anyway, I'm going to talk to John for a little bit behind the scenes. You guys, peace out, everybody. Thank you for watching. Follow Digital Foundry. Follow him on Twitter. Wishlist the game. I hope you guys all have an excellent weekend.